Storm Station, tracking Francine to keep you safe. The Storm Station is tracking Francine.
Good afternoon, South Louisiana. Welcome to our special coverage of Tracking Francine. I'm John Pasterek.
And I'm Brandy B. Harris. The storm has been making its way to the Louisiana coast all morning. And of course, we've got the Storm Station team with us, Chief Meteorologist Josh Eaches, and along with meteorologist Emma Kate Cowan. Y'all have been doing a great job tracking Francine for us, giving us the very latest information, but we've been watching it. Emma Kate, you let us know that move to the east is kind of all the shift that we saw since yesterday, but what can we expect now?
I think one of the big things, and we'll stand over and take a look at the latest conditions in a few minutes, is that as we've been watching those potential shifts to the east that models have been taking, the National Hurricane Center has been steadfast in keeping it on the same track. It's why they're the best in the world. It's why they consistently outperform the models, and it's why we shouldn't overreact to the computer models we're seeing on social media as we're preparing for an event like this. So let's take a look at what we are expecting in terms of a landfall right now. Myself and Emma Kate will step over to the big monitor and take a look. And Emma Kate, we'll go to you first as we've been watching this all morning long. This is a zoomed in look at the National Hurricane Center forecast track, and actually pretty on key with what we were showing yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely. It hasn't really changed over the past 24 hours. It is expected to make landfall right near the St. Mary Parish area, central Louisiana. Already seeing some of those impacts this morning, including the storm surges already beginning at the moment.
Yeah, it was your update 45 minutes ago that we get the printout from the National Hurricane Center kind of calling for that real quick deterioration in conditions in St. Mary Parish about now.
Yeah, absolutely. We're already seeing those life-threatening storm surges that they've been preparing for. Also starting to see those winds really get hefty and gusty in that region. Already a bit breezy out in Baton Rouge as well, but things are just going to continue to pick up throughout the afternoon.
Yeah, and we slowly ramp into this too. I mean, we're talking about that happening in St. Mary Parish now, although we're still several hours away from landfall. The same will be true in Baton Rouge. Yes, it will continue raining in the metro area for most of the day, but we'll take some time before we start to see those gusty winds eventually make it here. This is the line 7 o'clock. It is barely inland. I would say, based on what we've been sharing the last few days, kind of looking for a 2 p.m. landfall. I think you and I are now more in the camp of closer to 4 or 5, so a little bit later than expected.
Yeah, those later afternoon hours. And I know we've been seeing some slight changes from advisory to advisory, especially this morning. There was indication that this could become a Category 2 storm. Still expected to be a high-end Category 1 storm with those winds up to 90 miles an hour, just shy of that Category 2 criteria, but nevertheless, still going to feel those hurricane-type impacts.
And the latest stats on Francine are those 90-mile-per-hour winds, as Emma Kate just mentioned, and it's moving to the northeast at 13 miles per hour. And always stray from trying to compare to previous storms because they're all a little bit different.
Right.
One of the things that stand out about Francine compared to some recent storms, just in general, is that this one's moving a little bit quicker. It's a good thing from the rain perspective, maybe a bad thing from the wind perspective.
Right. When we have quicker moving storms, that means less time for that rain to come down over one spot, hopefully meaning less likelihood of those flash flooding incidences. But you're right, faster moving storms means that those higher wind gusts can make it further inland, Josh.
Yeah, and let's go ahead and take a look at that wind field. We've been talking about this the last few days, but you know this, hurricane savvy Louisiana, the right side is the worst side
in terms
of impacts of a storm. So this is just kind of a National Hurricane Center product here, an estimate of tropical storm force winds in yellow and hurricane force winds in orange. About 10 o'clock, we've got that arrow pointed towards the right side. You can see most of the winds are lopsided there, but it's a pretty large wind field, and most of our viewing area should feel those impacts.
Yeah, still included in that is Baton Rouge, some of the heavier or higher gusts, including parishes just to the south and the east of the capital city as well. And of course, one of that brings to concern is that trees down, power lines down. So we're going to be monitoring all the power outages for sure going into tonight. That's this evening. So throughout the day today, make sure that you have your phone staying charged, batteries to prepare for this later event in the day.
Yeah, I think sometimes there can be, and this is just from, our interactions on social media, we talk to viewers, we get emails, ultimately some impatience.
Yes.
We want to get this thing in and out of here. I'm with you. I want this to be over with. I'm ready for tomorrow already. But it may not take until it may be dinner time or nighttime before you start to notice conditions really getting bad in our area. And just to speak a little bit more on this track, this is the center line. We don't focus too much on that because remember, impacts occur well away from where the exact center of the storm goes. But compared to earlier in the week, we were talking about a storm moving over the Atchafalaya Basin. It was looking like Baton Rouge, New Roads, St. Francisville. not a big problem for our neighbors in the Crescent City.
Right.
That has changed.
It has shifted a little bit east with each advisory. Right now, it's pretty much stuck the same as it has the past 12 hours or so. But yeah, definitely any regions to the east, including towards the New Orleans area, could feel some of those stronger impacts, because on the east side is where we have those stronger winds, the heavier downpours, and that's likely to continue for a longer amount of time, I guess you could say.
And that tropical storm wind field, what will happen as the storm comes inland, it will slowly broaden out but weaken at the same time. So maybe the wind field gets wider, more areas experience the tropical storm force winds, but they start to lighten. And here's a clock at 2 a.m. I think this is probably a latest case scenario as to how long tropical storm force winds are holding on for, ultimately moving on and out of our area, getting into tomorrow. All right, we've done a lot of talking about track, but let's talk about the latest with this storm now. We've already mentioned the stats. They'll live here on the screen. I'll try to step out of the way so you can eventually take a look at them, but not much has changed in terms of wind speed. It's our 12 p.m. advisory. We'll get these every hour now on approach to landfall. We've got that speed at 13. Emma Kate, I'll go to you at least first off what we're seeing on radar right now. What you and I have been talking about.
I think the biggest difference would be between this time yesterday and today, Josh, because it took a longer time than originally anticipated for the tropical storm to pick up those hurricane characteristics. And that's because it was fighting some drier air in the atmosphere. It eventually got to hurricane strength yesterday evening and has pretty much stayed the same, maybe gaining a little bit of energy overnight. And now we're watching it try to hold itself together again today. Like I mentioned earlier, at first this morning, we thought it could potentially become a Category 2 storm, but really it hasn't been able to strengthen at all over the past 12 hours or so.
Yeah, it's good news, and it's good news that that strengthening was delayed. I mean, we thought we'd wake up to a hurricane yesterday morning and didn't have one, as you just mentioned, so that helped in at least mitigating the maximum strength, the peak strength before landfall. I won't rule it out, but I think it's highly unlikely we see additional significant strengthening before it makes landfall. I mean, look, we're not that far away now at this point from reaching Vermilion Bay and St. Mary Parish. Some of those heavier rain bands starting to stretch across the coastline now. You just referenced the National Hurricane Center message moments ago that conditions start to go downhill fast here, St. Mary Parish and the Louisiana coast. And here's our eye, our center of circulation. A couple of things to take note of here. This is well within full scope of our radars. You notice that southern side already starting to open up. That's something we've been showing on Futurecast many days. This was expected. This storm is going to get lopsided. It's going to be northern heavy, still going to have the winds on the south side, but the majority of the rain will occur before the winds pick up, and then the winds will remain after the heaviest rain stops. And we're going to watch this western eye wall as well, because it's going to be fighting some dry air and wind shear on this side. So there's a lot working against this storm overall. As we zoom out at the wider picture, you can actually get some evidence of what's happening in the atmosphere here on satellite. Eye not really well open right now, starting to fill in with some cloud cover, but take notice of some of these higher clouds in the southern Gulf. See how they're moving from southwest to northeast? You can see that motion over here as well. That's that southwesterly wind shear. It's starting to push on this system. And I took note in the National Hurricane Center discussion earlier, they said that if you look at the eye vertically, at the surface, it's farther to the southwest than it is in the atmosphere. It's farther to the northeast. That's that shear pushing on the storm.
Yep, which actually is helping it not become as strong as it potentially could. Of course, this is peak hurricane season, so we fear for strong strengthening or quick strengthening, but good news is that the atmosphere is working against it at the moment.
We talked about the shear there. Let's go to the other impact now, and that would be, I'm going to jump one more ahead, the dry air. I mean, there's clearly a lot working on the storm on the western side.
Yeah, absolutely. All of across Texas, that is dry air pushing against the system. We even saw some yesterday in the mid-levels working against it, and it's likely to try to invade into it over the next 12, 24 hours, quickly deteriorating the system.
I'll go back to that previous graphic, because one thing we can point out here too, when we're looking at this enhanced satellite image, the colors represent the coldest, deepest cloud tops, colder, deeper cloud tops, and intensifying storm. But follow that pink, coldest and deepest cloud tops, less of them over the last little while. So that's another one of those weakening signs that we'll keep an eye on. Okay, zooming in a little bit closer now, radar overlaid with the track. Once again, we're kind of thinking our timeline for landfall is maybe 2-3 hours delayed from what we expected yesterday. I think the message most of the week's been about 2 p.m. We're favoring 4, 5-ish now. Inland by 7. But look where it is by tomorrow morning.
Yeah, very quick moving by 7 a.m. So that's about a 12-hour time span where this system just takes off through southeast Louisiana. And the good news is that once it makes landfall, it will lose its energy as it moves inland. We're still going to see those gusty winds. Of course, all of the rain right now, that's mainly ahead of the system. So once it does make landfall and move through, not much going on behind it, which is great news. We'll begin to dry up by early on Thursday.
Yeah, and that's current radar, not future radar. So you see that position at 7 a.m. tomorrow. Remember we were saying about it being a lopsided storm on the north? All that rain will be north of that center as well. I don't expect much precipitation left in our area tomorrow morning. We'll stay breezy for a little while because we still have that large open center moving over our area, so we'll continue to handle the winds as well. Quite a contrast between current conditions in the capital area down south right now. I'll let you go through the two.
Yeah, absolutely. As for at 5 a.m. on tune-in, winds were fairly calm here. Now beginning to be breezy out of the east at about 14 miles an hour. Obviously, we're seeing the first of the rain right now. Quite moderate here in the capital area, but other than that, we haven't really seen the impacts just yet. But as we move further towards the coast, we're starting to see those winds really ramp up.
Yeah, so the Morgan City stats are a little bit different.
Yeah, the wind still east at about 13. Earlier, we were seeing pushing 20, and the gusts really beginning to pick up there as well. As for the radar, still much of that, some of the deeper convection and more moderate to even heavy rainfall impacting Morgan City at the moment. And like we said, with those winds picking up, it's pushing the water towards the coastline, and we're going to start seeing those storm surges impact the region.
Yeah, so that's kind of a wrap on our stage setter here of what we're expecting over the next couple of hours here. We'll be with you all afternoon long. Myself and Emma Kate Cowan through about 3 o'clock. We'll tag in Malcolm Byron a little bit later too. And yeah, we're here on the air. We've got our mobile app where you can follow. And you can track the storm on the Storm Station weather app too. You can zoom into your neighborhood and see how close the track is to you. We are going to be updating our forecast blog every hour on WBRZ.com. So all of this detailed information we're giving you on the air, we've got it in picture and written form online. If you want to stay up to date with that, we will continue to tweak it. And those new advisories that are released once an hour, you'll see them on the WBRZ Weather Facebook and X platforms as well. So, Emma Kate, I think they're going to check back in with you in just a couple of minutes here, and I'll be rejoining within the hour as well. So, JP and Brandy, back to you.
Thank you so much for the Storm Station team and all of you, the work y'all are doing. Thank y'all. Well, we are only hours away from Francine making landfall here in Louisiana. Stay weather aware with the Storm Station. Download the WBRZ News and weather apps to stay ahead of the storm. Now you can stream all of our live team coverage and get up-to-the-minute updates, even if your cable and power goes out. This is critical. We'll be streaming live on YouTube, getting you the important information to help you weather the storm.
Yeah, and they just gave us a great picture of where the storm, where we stand right now, as Dr. Josh and Emma Kate just showed us. Francine is getting close to making landfall along the Louisiana coast. And one of those areas that will see the first effects of the storm, St. Mary Parish.
That's right. And that's where we find meteorologist Balin Rogers, who's there live now. Balin, good afternoon. Tell us, what conditions are you seeing where you are?
Well, so far in Morgan City, we're not seeing too bad of conditions. It's not that bad right now. Winds really only gusting to around 35 miles per hour. But we're really awaiting the core of the system making landfall over the next several hours. At the noon advisory, National Hurricane Center even saying those tropical storms winds are just offshore right now. Actually had an oil rig just offshore, sustained winds to 85 miles per hour, gusting to 100 miles per hour. And all those winds are heading this direction in Morgan City. As of where I'm standing right now, behind me, you see a Atchafalaya River, and we're expecting some pretty serious storm surge in this location. And actually right in front of me, we have the flood walls, which is going to protect Morgan City from this river rising, expecting to get 8 to 10 feet above what you see it right now. And if it wasn't for these walls, Morgan City would really get inundated with a lot of water. So definitely thankful for a lot of that. So like I mentioned, conditions aren't too bad right now, maybe gusting 30 to 35 miles per hour, but those tropical storm force winds in excess of 40 miles per hour are just offshore, and they are moving this way. Probably going to get the core of the storm as well, what's known as the eye wall, and it's that ring of most intense storms right around the center of Francine. That's likely going to come into this area. It's going to get really intense, really fast, probably going to have whiteout conditions. Cannot rule out some wind gusts to 100 miles per hour as well. That's going to do some damage to trees, maybe a few power lines down, and with that type of winds, maybe a little bit of structural damage as well. So after that most intense rain does move through, might even get into the eye of the storm, and that's where we see a complete calm in the winds before the backside comes through and it gets windy once again. So probably going to have to move from this location now because in a few hours this might actually be underwater, but we're going to continue to provide updates all throughout the afternoon and evening here in Morgan City. So I'm live in Morgan City, meteorologist Balin Rogers, WBRZ Channel 2. Send it back to you in the newsroom.
All right, Balin, stay safe out there. And, of course, Morgan City, St. Mary Parish, no stranger to hurricanes and storms. In fact, back in 1992, just about every building in Morgan City suffered some damage courtesy of Hurricane Andrew, which swept through that area. And as you can see, pretty good conditions there they stand. And I thought it'd be much worse given that the storm is so very close from making landfall. And it looks like Morgan City's in the bullseye.
Yeah, Morgan City definitely in the bullseye. And, of course, we're definitely going to be keeping a close eye on it. We'll check in with Balin because we're seeing the rain come down there. But like he said, it's not as windy as maybe he had anticipated. But he did let us know in a few hours that same location where he is could look totally different and start to see some storm surge.
Yeah, and he's going to have to move because that historically and traditionally that floods right there as it's being, it goes up against that seawall that he was talking about. So we'll check in with him again, and we'll check on conditions coming up. But, utility companies like Energy are preparing their crews to respond to Hurricane Francine. And
today, just a short while ago, Energy officials sharing this message with the community.
We're out here finishing up our preparations for Hurricane Francine. We know it is expected to come ashore in just a few more hours, could come in as a Category 2 storm, so we're finishing up those preparations. We prepare for storms throughout the year. In fact, we hold our annual hurricane drills through May to make sure that we're ready for storms such as this.
Now, Energy also says to stay away from down power lines and to call them before touching any of them. Now, we've been learning from the next reporter we're going to go to about things that are happening in Ascension Parish. And we just got notification. If you have the WBRZ News app, we just pushed this to your phone just about a minute ago that the Lamar Dixon Expo Center will open in about 13 minutes at 12:30 as a shelter. It's one of those last resort shelters. So if you need to shelter, you can go to the Lamar Dixon Expo Center. They're going to open up at 12:30 for those in Ascension Parish.
Plenty of room, plenty of facilities. And I know that a lot of the folks there actually bring food up there to help people who stay there and to feed people who stay there. So Lamar Dixon opening up in just minutes as a shelter of last resort. And officials are urging everyone to stay vigilant and safe as Francine makes its way to the Louisiana coast.
That's right. News 2's Fallon Brown is live with a message from State Police. Fallon, good afternoon. So what is State Police telling the public?
Well, good afternoon, Brandy and JP. Right now, I'm here with Trooper Shelby Mayfield, who is with Louisiana State Police. They have been busy getting ready for Hurricane Francine. So tell me what kind of preparations you guys have been taking ahead of this bad weather.
So since yesterday, in preparation for the inclement weather that was coming, we took the initiative to double staff our shifts and get our personnel to include some of the supervisors out on the roadway, spread out equally across our troop area, just to make sure we're in position and in place for some of the implications that's going to come from the storm that's inbound.
Right. And I mean, even right now, the storm hasn't gotten bad yet, but we are outside. We can see the road. Lots of people out and about right now. So what message do you have to the community as far as staying safe goes?
So since the hurricane season began, one of the things that we focused on was getting the message out, hurricane preparedness, disaster preparedness. And right now is the time that it's time to execute that plan. So this is not a good time to be out on the roadway. All the things that, should have been accomplished, to prepare for the storm should be done at this point. One of the reasons that we tried to put the troopers in place to get things done and be, staged to respond was to prevent having to respond to the things that we actually can control. One of the things that we can control is reducing the amount of crashes and other responses that our troopers are going to have to make prior to the storm. So for every incident that we face or that comes up, to include roadway crashes and severe incidents, that's going to take some of those emergency responders off the roadway. So we just ask that our residents hunker down. This is the time to be in place. Wherever that place is that you're going to be during a storm, now is the time to be in that place.
Right. And of course, you know, when it comes to road closures and any downed trees, any hazards at all out there on those roadways, you can also stay connected with Louisiana State Police on social media. And I heard you mention something about 511.
So there's a 577, which is star LSP, star 577. And you can call that number in case you witness or observe a hazardous driving situation and report it so that troopers can respond. But again, if there's an emergency situation for yourself or your family, something that you observe, 911 would be the appropriate number.
Absolutely. And of course, you know, we're also going to do what we can to communicate to the public everything you need to know when it comes to road hazards out there and anything hurricane related. So keep in touch with our social media. If you have the WBRZ app, turn those notifications on. That way you can stay informed and stay safe out there, even if you do lose power. We'll go ahead and send things back to the desk now. Trooper Mayfield, thank you so much for being here with me today and for protecting and serving the community as always. Live in Ascension Parish, Fallon Brown, WBRZ News 2.
All right, thanks so much, Fallon. So lots of important tips there. I know a lot of our state officials have been kind of saying that same thing. You know, 511, get a game plan, dialing some of these important numbers so that you can get access to resources and information. But of course, I think one of the big things you should do, download the WBRZ News and weather apps. We are pushing in notifications and push alerts straight to your phone at the minute we're getting them, whether that's advisories from the National Hurricane Center that we're getting every hour, or like we just told you, the Lamar Dixon Expo Center has opened up as a shelter, and there are other shelters also in the area.
Yeah, Colonel Robert Hodges, the head of state police, said earlier in the briefing we had from the governor's office that they'll have many more troopers out on the roadways this afternoon, just checking for possible down power lines, flooding, and that kind of thing. But he urged people to stay off the roadways, whether it's main arteries, interstates. Look, stay home. Don't head out in the roadways. It'll be a very hazardous situation.
That's right. And right now, we should be wrapping up those preparations because now is the time to stay safe and hunker down. Francine is continuing to make the storm's way to the Gulf Coast.
That's right. And News 2's Alexis Maroney reports from Assumption Parish this afternoon. Alexis, good afternoon. So set the scene for us. Where are you and how's it looking out there?
Hey, Brandy. Hey, JP. We are in Assumption, technically in Napoleonville, and I'm here with Bree Andrus, our sports reporter, who is wearing a different hat today. But we've been driving through the storm. We were in Iberville Parish, and we came over here to Assumption. We've been checking out shelters, and we've watched the rain and the wind sort of pick up. But we've both experienced hurricanes our entire lives, and it's not been anything just yet. But I mean, of course, Bree, what have you seen while you've been driving?
Well, since we've been driving, it's been a steady kind of shower. The rain hasn't been too bad, but ever since we got to Assumption Parish at this community center, the wind has picked up significantly. I went out to the car to get some more of our gear and my hat flew off. So that was fun, but we're in a safe place now. The shelter that we're at, they are open to the public in Assumption Parish, allowing people to come in for a safe place to stay throughout the storm. They don't expect it to be that long, just about 12 hours, but Assumption Parish has been through something like this before, so it's not anything that they're new to, just like many of us here in South Louisiana. Actually, an Acadian ambulance just pulled up to the community center here, and that's going to be good to have handy, you know, if something does happen, somebody has a medical emergency. Obviously can't get to a hospital right now. We don't want anyone on the roads, so it'll be helpful to have something like that, but things should start picking up, and it's a good time now to stay shelter in place.
I also want to note something that we haven't really talked about in a lot of these newscasts is there's a lot of mobile homes near us in Assumption Parish. As we drove through, there was a bunch of them, and I think it's important for those folks to also know that you should be taking shelter. I think we've heard in hurricane preps our entire lives that you want to make sure you are in a building that is safe to the ground. You are in a building with 4 walls that's not going to be able to pick up. And we've seen a lot of folks who've come in here, and it seems to be the folks who are coming from those mobile homes to this facility. I also want to note we spoke to Leroy Blanchard. He's with the police jury, and he told me, like Bree said, that this area has been through Hurricane Katrina. They've been through Ida. They've been through Gustav. stuff. And they've seen damage from those storms, but they're usually pretty quick to pick things up afterwards. But they want to note to stay off the roads after the storm. Even once the rain's gone and you can drive through safely, if you think you can drive through safely, it is not safe to drive on those roads just yet.
Yeah, absolutely. He said wait about 24 hours after the storm passes, and then they'll open the roads back up and start cleaning up debris. They said with Hurricane Ida, it took about 7 days to clean up all the debris, and that was a really bad storm that impacted Assumption Parish, especially the east side of Assumption Parish, very significantly. I know it affected my hometown in Lafourche Parish very, very heavily. So we don't know what this storm can bring. Yes, it's a Category 1 hurricane, but it can bring a lot more damage to certain areas than others. So it's always better to be safe than sorry in these type of situations. Just make sure to stay shelter in place. Make sure you have everything you need. And if you don't, find a shelter near you that is open, that if you're not already there, get there ASAP because we don't want you on the roads. But the storm hopefully won't be as bad as others in the past.
Sure, and we are in Assumption right now, but we were also in Iberville about an hour ago, and there is a shelter in White Castle along Bowie Street. So get there, be safe. There's food and water at that shelter also. But we're going to send it back to you guys in the studio, live in Assumption Parish. Alexis, Maroney, and Bree Andrus, WBRZ News 2.
Great job, Alexis and Bree. Thanks for that report. And don't let the scene behind them fool you. As you can see, it's kind of calm there. Trees are not really blowing in any direction. A little bit of rain. That's only going to get much worse throughout the afternoon.
Yeah, Governor Jeff Landry actually talked about that same thing in his 11 o'clock press conference about the fact that even though it's a Category 1, possibly a Category 2, doesn't mean that we should turn our nose at it and think little of it, because the impacts can still be real. It can still spin tornadoes and wind damage and all of those good things. So we want to make sure that we're prepared and staying safe throughout this entire weather event.
Well, last-minute preparations are also underway in St. Gabriel.
That's right. That's where we find Destiny Beasley. She's live in St. Gabriel in Iberville Parish with the very latest.
Hello, everyone. I'm out here in St. Gabriel near the fire district, Iberville Parish Fire District number 1. And as you can see, it's starting to come down a little bit harder. Just a few minutes ago, it really wasn't coming down that much, but it just decided to pour down a little harder. And we have a puddle. It's not that high, but you can tell it's starting to build up just a tad bit, but it's not everywhere. It's just in different parts of the area. And they also have sandbags. We have people coming in and out of the area grabbing sandbags just for those last minute preparations. And also they have a last resort shelter at the St. Gabriel Community Center. And I have with me Cal Grace and Captain Snelson, and they're going to tell us a little bit about the last resort shelter. So tell me a little bit about that.
Sure. So Iberville Parish President Chris Daigle, in conjunction with City of St. Gabriel officials, Red Cross as well, we've stood up a shelter of last resort at the St. Gabriel Community Center here on Garden Simon LeBlanc. And that's for folks that housing may not be adequate to withstand the storm. We're asking if you come, Iberville Parish residents, to bring your IDs, any medications, and sleeping accessories for the ride up the storm for the rest of the night here in St. Gabriel. And we have Captain Snelson here representing the Iberville Parish Sheriff's Department. He and his guys are here. They're manning the area here. We've commandeered the first Fire District 1, and that has become our East Iberville Emergency Operations Center. So we're double duty here today with the Fire District 1 located here on 30 to actually be our EOC for the east side. So the east side is well covered. We appreciate Sheriff Stassi. We appreciate Captain Snelson for providing us with the manpower so that we can monitor this storm actively and respond accordingly.
And I know it is coming down just a little bit harder than before. You know, just a couple of minutes ago, it was just lightly, coming down. And I know we were talking earlier that if it does start to get to those levels of where it is a flood, you all have an aqua dam. So just talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, the world famous aqua dam. Well, we are here monitoring the conditions. We're taking guidance from our parish president. Our staff engineers are in the building right here behind us. And if the conditions present themselves, we are ready ready and able to deploy the aqua dam. As you can see, it's here in the back, and we'll be looking at and we'll get guidance from National Weather Service, GOSEP, as well as Parish President Chris Daigle. So we're standing at the ready to be able to deploy that in the time that if it presents itself.
And Captain Snelson, just as far as those safety precautions that people should think about as it is, Hurricane Francine, she is coming a little closer, just some hours away. What some things that people should keep in mind?
Stay at home, stay off of the roads. There's going to be some debris in the roads, and they are going to be impassable, and it makes everybody's job harder to get the roads cleared if there's a bunch of traffic out in the area.
All right, so y'all all heard that. Just make sure you stay safe. And also, if you are coming across any type of flooded areas, as they say, turn around, don't drown. Make sure you stay dry and go to those last resort shelter places as well. In Iberville Parish, Destiny Beasley, WBRZ News 2.
All right, Destiny, thanks for that. Please stay safe out there. And as you can see, conditions starting to deteriorate there in Iberville Parish. And it was interesting that the police were talking about that aqua dam. There's a bone of contention between Iberville and East Baton Rouge Parish because there was a lot of flooding going on there.
That's right. And of course, if we see that come out, we'll show you some video of that in the past. But we're watching the water, or at least the rain, start to build up there in Iberville Parish. When we were down in St. Mary Parish checking in with meteorologist Balin Rogers, you can see he was getting some heavy rain where he was. So very interesting to see that as we get further into the noon hour, we're watching those conditions deteriorate. Just like Emma Kate has been telling us all morning long, that afternoon, the governor said that at 11 o'clock, that now is the time to hunker down. The time for preparing is over, and we are now in the time where the storm is right up on our back door.
Yeah, from St. Mary to St. Gabriel, New Roads to Napoleonville, we've got you covered. We are your source for important information to help you weather Francine. Stay with us. We're going to take a short break. Back with much more of our continuing coverage right after this.
Here's our new store. Every mattress you see is on sale now. We have queens starting at $249, and this queen's only $499. And remember, don't pay too much for your mattress. Get the BR Mattress Outlet today.
This is your city. These are your streets. Injured in a car crash? This is your lawyer, Cascio Injury Attorneys.
It's LAS's end of summer sale. Right now, get $100 off each LAS window or shutter, plus free installation. LAS products are beautiful, best in class, and made to withstand the elements of the Gulf South. For over 65 years, LAS has manufactured, installed, and warranted our own products. No middleman. When you buy from LAS, you buy peace of mind. So take advantage now of LAS's end of summer sale. When you want the best for your home, you want LAS.
I'm tired of packed lunches. I want packed bags. I don't want to sit in the carpool line. I want to lie in the lazy river. Or go somewhere where learning is fun again. How about instead of swinging by the grocery store, we swing on a pirate ship? My to-do list has taken over. How about a to-dream list instead? Play Coastal and go have some fun for fun's sake.
City. These are your streets. Injured in a car crash? This is your lawyer, Cascio Injury Attorneys.
Where have you been?
Since we're located next to Goodwood Hardware, I bought a few things.
Don't you think we should be selling some mattresses first?
Well, we have all these mattresses. Queen started at $249.
Miss Kathy, your delivery's here from Town Center.
Really?
The storm station is tracking Francine.
Good afternoon. Welcome back to our special coverage of Tracking Francine. I'm John Pastorik.
And I'm Brady B. Harris. The storm has been making its way to the Louisiana coast all morning long, all out now through the afternoon. Let's go to Storm Station meteorologist Emma Kate Cowan for the very latest on Francine's track. Emma Kate, good afternoon. So any shifts in the track or any strengthening?
Not seeing much changes of the track over the past couple of hours, you guys. Francine still moving mainly northeast at about 10 miles an hour, now up to 13 miles an hour, getting closer to the Louisiana coast. In fact, about a little over 80 miles from the coastline, a bit further towards Morgan City. And we're already beginning to see those impacts as the winds pick up, pushing some of that water towards the coast, raising the issue for, of course, those storm surges. This is where the warnings are, and that's where we could see up to 10 feet of storm surge build into the region. We actually had an alert put out by the National Hurricane Center saying that that was beginning about an hour ago. So all those individuals down there beginning to see the impacts already. In fact, Morgan City right now, that's a look at the current conditions, seeing some of the more moderate to even heavier downpours. The winds are beginning to ramp up that way, and they will be the first to see those hurricane force winds. In fact, taking a look over the next several hours, by 3 p.m., sustained winds up near 30 miles an hour, gusts near 50, and then completely soaring past then as Francine does make landfall right in that St. Mary Parish region. 42-mile-an-hour winds expected, gusts up to 70 miles an hour by 6 p.m., up near 80 miles an hour by later on tonight. And then you can see that significant drop in the wind speeds overnight. That's a look at midnight tonight as that system continues to move northwards. Now, not as high of wind gusts here in the Baton Rouge area. In fact, as we take a look, we probably will stay a little breezy through the rest of the afternoon. By around 6 p.m., we'll see some of the highest gusts exceeding the 50-mile-an-hour mark by later on tonight as that system moves throughout the region. But then you can see not as sharp as the drop-off. We'll see those breezy conditions into the overnight hours. This is the latest look at the radar and Francine's track. You can see still expected to be at hurricane strength when it does make landfall later on this afternoon. The latest data suggests anywhere between those later afternoon hours, 4 or 5 p.m. could be when we see the system make landfall. Still at 90 mile an hour, those maximum winds should stay very similar by the time it reaches that St. Mary Parish region and moves northwards. The good news is that once this system makes landfall, it will begin to deteriorate, lose some of its energy, and by the time it makes it to Baton Rouge, not as likely to see hurricane force winds. And then also something to point out, by 7 a.m. on Thursday, this system will well above our region into Mississippi, back down to tropical storm strength. So taking a bit closer in, I want to point out that this eye wall that we've been tracking, it is a bit east of the National Hurricanes track. That might imply that it's taking a bit of a jog to the east, not enough to really make an impact on the forecast, but it's something that we will watch closely here in the storm station. Of course, with tropical storms, hurricanes, we all know that on the east side of the system is where we see these strongest impacts. This is a look at where it's expected to make landfall. You can see that track hasn't changed much, and right around that region is where we can see those hurricane strength winds. Outside of that, a wider area of those tropical storm strength winds. So much of southeast Louisiana still feeling those impacts. In fact, as we take this system northeast through southeast Louisiana, nearing the Baton Rouge area, still likely to see those tropical storm strength winds later on this evening. But Baton Rouge does sit just to the west of the system, so we do anticipate places like Livingston Parish, Tangipahoa, down in both Ascension, Assumption, St. James, seeing some of these stronger impacts, the heavier rains, the possibilities for some severe weather. In fact, taking a look at the latest severe weather risk, capital area cannot be ruled out from some spin-up tornadoes, but better chance the further east you go, the east of that center of the storm. So that's something to keep in mind. Make sure your weather alerts turned on. Now, as for that track, you notice right where the track is expected to travel, that's where we could see the highest rainfall amounts around the region. Right now, anticipating 3 to 6 inches right along that track. Can't rule out some higher amounts as well with those heavier downpours. That does, of course, raise the concern for some localized flash flooding, and is why we are under a flood watch through the remainder of the day. But system not yet making landfall means that we can still see some minor changes in that track, which would make big shifts and impacts. So keep up to date with the latest advisories that will come out each hour on the hour as we near landfall later on this afternoon. Tropical alerts still remain the same. Baton Rouge area remaining under a hurricane warning, as well as many parishes to the south and east. Up further north, still under that tropical storm warning as we await Francine. Make sure to stay up to date. Like I mentioned, new advisories from the National Hurricane each hour. We should have one shortly with the latest. You can always check up on the blog, or better yet, download the Storm Station app where you will be notified when we get more information. Brandy, JP.
Thanks so much, Emma Kate. We are only hours from Francine making landfall, less than that. Stay weather aware with the Storm Station. We're going to get you through this. Download the WBRZ News and weather apps to stay ahead of the storm. We will continue to stream live coverage, team coverage, and get you up to date, up to the minute updates. Even if your cable or your power goes out, that's critical. We'll also be streaming live on YouTube to make sure you're getting the important life-saving information to help you weather the storm.
Well, as Emma Kay just showed us, Francine is getting closer and closer to making landfall along the Louisiana coast. And one of those areas that's already seen the effects of the storm, St. Mary Parish.
Which is where we find meteorologist Balin Rogers. He's there live. Balin, good afternoon. Set the scene for us. We saw you earlier and the conditions were deteriorating. What are you seeing now?
Well, I tell you what, Brandy, conditions have definitely gotten worse over the past 5 to 10 minutes. The rain rates are increasing, winds are increasing as well. Probably still not the tropical storm force just yet, but we're really getting close to that 35 to 40 mile per hour range, and I have some power lines right above me, and they're starting to make that humming noise, and that generally happens once you start seeing those winds around 40 to potentially even 50 miles per hour. So winds are picking up, rain is picking up, and likely going to be going downhill from this point forward. Based on latest radar, it looks like the core of the system, the strongest winds, even the eye, is actually going to come right over our location here. So we're likely going to get the brunt of Francine here in Morgan City. Expecting winds potentially gusting to 100 miles per hour. That's going to be a problem for trees, a few power lines, and maybe even some light structural damage as well with some of those winds. Another concern we have is storm surge. This area is very prone to storm surge flooding. And right behind me, we actually have the Atchafalaya River, which is actually expected to reverse flow as the winds push water inland. Normally flows north to south, going to start flowing south to north, and we're going to start to see some water rises. Actually, in a few hours, we might not even be able to stand right here, as this will be completely underwater. And that would be a big problem for Morgan City. Thankfully, we're on the other side of a flood wall, and that completely blocks any water rises from inundating the city. So definitely good news for Morgan City. You're not going to have to worry about storm surge flooding if you are behind those walls. It's really just going to be heavy rain that could provide some brief moments of flash flooding, maybe some standing water on roadways. But I really think the main concern with this system, especially here in the city, is going to be the winds, as we're likely going to get the brunt of the storm. As far as when it's going to get here, National Hurricane Center has noted in the past 30 minutes, the tropical storm force winds are just offshore, maybe slightly starting to move onshore at this moment. So it's not going to be long now until Morgan City, until we're seeing those gusts 40, 50, even 60 miles per hour. And then once the core of the system moves through, known as the eye wall, that's the ring of storms right around the center of circulation, that's when we're going to start to see those 80, 90, and then on the higher end, 100 mile per hour gusts. Definitely not going to ride that out here. We're too exposed. We can see water rises here. We got power lines above us. So we're likely going to relocate pretty soon, go to a lot safer location, preferably behind a building, so we're blocked from those really strong winds and any potential flying debris. But we're going to continue to provide updates all afternoon and evening long and show you how these conditions are in Morgan City. But I'm live in Morgan City, meteorologist, WBRZ Channel 2.
All right, thanks so much for that reporting. Please stay safe, Balin. And of course, we heard from the governor's office a short while ago, and they've been reminding us of some of the important things about how to stay safe. He was joined by his state and federal emergency officials for a briefing before noon.
Yeah, they say the state is prepared for what Francine will bring.
I wanted to take a moment to really thank the GOSEP team here and our GOSEP director, Jacques Thibodeau, who I'm going to bring up next, for the work that they've done. And, of course, we stand ready to answer whatever Francine delivers to us tomorrow. I want to remind all of the citizens that now is the time to begin to stay off of the roadways, stay home, and stay put. It's also the time to take advantage of the power that you have currently and make sure that you charge all of your devices so that you can keep the maximum amount of charge on those devices as possible. Make sure that if you have external batteries, you want to charge those as well. If the conditions are not too rough in the area, then now could be the last opportunity for you to take photos of your property to assess the damage once the storm has passed. Make sure that you have your important documents secure and in a safe place, preferably in a waterproof bag or container, such as birth certificates, social security cards, insurance policies, and etc. So we want you to make your preparations and stay informed, and GOSEP will continue to provide updates as we monitor the storm's progress. Again, if you can go to your app store, if you have not yet, and download the GetAGamePlan.org app, we encourage you to do so as well. At this time, I'd like to bring up our GOSEP Director, Jacques Thibodeau.
Good morning, everyone. Okay, real quick for everyone, the time to evacuate has now passed. It is the time to go to ground and hunker down. We are now no longer in the prepare for a hurricane. We are now in the respond for a hurricane or to a hurricane. So what I'd like to do is to take a quick moment and highlight the fact that we've been working in a partnership with FEMA for the past 3 days. We have our Region 6 Director, Tony Robinson, here, and he's going to say a few words, and then we're going to turn it over to Jay Grimes to give you a quick weather update, and we're going to talk about how you respond to the initial effects of a storm. So, Tony?
Thank you, Jacques. Thank you, Governor. As Jacques said, we were working very closely with GOSEP for the last several days. We've got teams on site. We've got commodities here like water, meals ready to eat, generators that are ready to deploy out, working with GOSEP. We'd really like you to do what the governor said. Take this storm seriously. It is a serious storm. Your final action should be complete, and now's the time to hunker down and ride the storm out. Follow the instructions of your local officials. The president did declare an emergency yesterday based on the governor's request. That provides the assistance that the locals and states may need for commodities, resources, and some reimbursement. So we just want everybody to know that really is for the governments right now to be able to help them make sure that we're taking life-sustaining, life-supporting actions. We'll continue to work closely with the state and GOSEP on being prepared for the storm, whatever resources are needed post-storm, and do some assessments to be able to determine what other federal assistance may be needed.
All right, well, we just heard from them there. They gave us a lot of good information earlier. They've definitely been reminding people, stay off the roads. That time for preparations and cleaning up, that may have passed us. It's time to start hunkering down. I do want to note, because they talked about, later in that press conference, they talked to DOTD about roadways that were closed, and there's not a lot, but transportation-wise, all but one flight out of BTR canceled. All of the flights coming out of Louis Armstrong International in Kenner, all canceled for today.
Yeah, and Governor Landry made a good point. Now is the time, before the storm makes landfill and maybe knocks out power, use the power that you have to do everything you need to do, whether it's charging batteries, charging phones, cooking, doing everything you need to get ready in case the power goes out. Because let's face it, power is going to go out in some places because we're expecting to see winds anywhere from 60 to 100 mile per hour gust. You know, when you're talking about a Category 1, almost a Category 2 hurricane, it's going to carry those very powerful winds.
And JP, I just keep checking all over to check some of those cameras that we had been checking earlier. We're still seeing the conditions outside are starting to deteriorate, kind of like what we saw with Balin Rogers, who's down there in St. Mary Parish in Morgan City. But of course, the conditions will affect the linemen, the utility companies, when they get out there to respond post-storm.
And as you know, utility companies like Energy are preparing for their crews to respond to Hurricane Francine.
Yeah, we heard from them earlier. Let's take a listen.
We're out here finishing up our preparations for Hurricane Francine. We know it is expected to come ashore in just a few more hours. Could come in as a Category 2 storm, so we're finishing up those preparations. We prepare for storms throughout the year. In fact, we hold our annual hurricane drills through May to make sure that we're ready for storms such as this.
Energy also says to stay away from down power lines and to call before touching them. And speaking of those down power lines, that's one of those things that people need to be aware of, that all of our emergency officials have been reminding the community that after the storm, the post-storm is oftentimes when it's the most dangerous, whether that's generator safety and generator usage or down power lines.
Yeah, and Energy, in fact, we were talking about it earlier. You know, I got a text from Energy that was telling me that, I'm going to read it to you because it's very interesting. They say that Energy crews will respond quickly when there's a power outage, and safely once winds are below 30 miles per hour. So until those winds are 30 miles per hour or lower, they can't really get out there and start making repairs. So the good news is, as Dr. Josh and Emma Kate were showing us, is this storm is going to move through pretty fast. So that's going to give the chance for those winds to die down quickly and perhaps let the crews get in quickly to make repairs.
And we're going to check in with our next crew in just a second. I do want to mention to folks, though, Rouse's Market in Baton Rouge, Zachary, Denham Springs, Gonzales, Prairieville will be open till 4. So there are definitely still some outlets and places where people can get those last-minute, super last-minute things if you need them. And I know some other grocery stores a little bit further east from us started to close and put stuff up in their stores so that things aren't blowing around. But there are some stores still open. But obviously, we want everyone to stay home and stay safe. We even have a list of shelters that have opened up, shelters of last resort like Lamar Dixon and Gonzales. But there's shelters also in Iberville Parish. And the preparations continue there ahead of the storm over in White Castle.
We're at the White Castle Community Center. We're gearing up for whatever Francine brings our way. And I just want to show you some of the supplies that they have here for any residents who need it. So we've got cots behind us. You can see they're from the American Red Cross. They have an entire stack against this wall. It's basically a big open gym. They're going to have food, blankets, whatever resources folks here in the parish need. You can come by and get it. Or if you feel unsafe in your home, best to just ride it out here with parish officials. I spoke to Steve Galata with the parish about what they've got going on here today.
We have about 5 parish workers, including myself. We have water, we have blankets, we have cots from the Red Cross in the parish, and we'll have some food later on, so I think we'll be ready to go. We have a backup generator also.
Like he said, there's tons of resources, food, water, beds, whatever you need, whether you feel unsafe in home or you just need a place to get away for the night. They'll be open through the storm. But come on by, whatever you need, they've got it. In Iberville Parish, Alexis Maroney, WBRZ News 2.
All right, Alexis, thanks for that. Well, last-minute preparations are also underway in St. Gabriel.
That's where we find Destiny Beasley live in Iberville Parish. Destiny, good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon, JP and Brandy. Now, the last time you all saw me, it was pouring down just a tad bit, but it lightened up. But there's still a few puddles out here that you can see. They're getting a little bit higher, and there's still a pile of sandbags still available for everyone. Now, St. Gabriel Community Center, they still have their last resort shelter open for everyone. It was open this morning at 10 o'clock this morning. Now, it's for anyone who has unstable homes like mobile homes or older built homes, anyone that can come there for those last minute shelter. Now, since it is last minute, you should bring your own blanket, food, snacks, also your medications, anything else. And I also have the aqua dam as well. I know Cal Grace, he told us that the aqua dam, it will come out only when it gets very severe out here. So make sure if you do see those standing waters out there, make sure you turn around, don't drown. And as you all were saying, with those poles out there in the lines, make sure you stay away from them as well. Make sure you're always inside and don't go out unless you have to, but still stay inside. In St. Gabriel, Destiny Beasley, WBRZ News 2.
All right, Destiny, thanks for that. And as you can see behind her, they still have plenty of sandbags and sand available at the St. Gabriel City Hall there. They have a City Hall complex. So, you know, it's right off the highway, right off the River Road, so you can go by there, you can get your sand, you can check in with officials there, and then they have opened that shelter of last resort.
And we do have lists of some of those sandbag locations right here on on the WBRZ website of where you can get sandbags. There are other places that also have those pre-packed sandbags for you in some places. But obviously, we are going to encourage you to stay home. It is time to start hunkering down as the storm approaches us. Conditions can deteriorate pretty quickly, so you'll want to make sure you're being safe.
Be safe and not sorry. Remember, we are Louisiana strong, and we're going to get you through this. We've got much more to come as we continue to track Francine right here. Special coverage on WBRZ, your storm station. Back with more right after this.
After my car was hit by that van, I had so many injuries and a lot of medical bills.
At Murphy Law Firm, we return your calls, answer all your questions, and go after all the money you deserve. Injured? Call Murphy Law Firm, 928-8800.
Need a lift in a bedroom? It's more common than you think. Goodwood Men's Sexual Wellness is here to help you rise again. With our expert care, you can regain your peak performance. Visit yourgoodwood.com.
There are trucks, and then there's the GMC Sierra, available with the connected driving experience and the world's first 6-function multi-pro tailgate. GMC Sierra. It's the truck. Or get $3,500 purchase cash on select GMC Sierra models. Or get a total of $6,000 purchase allowance when you trade in an eligible vehicle. See your Bayou GMC dealer.
Car wrecks, auto accidents, T-bone. No matter what you call it, at Murphy Law Firm, we've seen it all. Our team is dedicated to helping you. Seriously injured? Call me, Attorney Peyton Murphy, at 928-8800.
Let's face it, life throws you curveballs. At Goodwood Men's Sexual Wellness, we help you stand tall. Whether you're facing ED or battling low T, we've got the solutions to help you regain the oomph you need. Goodwood is your partner in men's sexual wellness. Visit yourgoodwood.com.
Bear Creek Western Store, it's where the West begins.
In 1965, my grandparents opened Bear Creek Western Store. It quickly grew. As my family says, it's Grandma's hobby that got out of hand.
Saddle up, boys and girls. This is where the West begins.
Bear Creek Western Store, it's where the West begins.
The storm station is tracking Francine.
Good afternoon and welcome back to our special coverage of Tracking Francine. I'm John Prester.
And I'm Brandy B. Harris. Storm station meteorologists are working overtime to give you the very latest information to keep you safe. Let's go straight to Chief Meteorologist Dr. Josh Eaches and Meteorologist McKay Cowan for more.
All right, thank you guys very much. Yeah, new information just coming in. McKay and I have been digesting the 1 p.m. advisory on Francine here, and not much change in stats, but this yellow shaded area that you see across East Baton Rouge Parish, or excuse me, just south of East Baton Rouge Parish and toward Lake Pontchartrain, that is a tornado watch.
Yep, that's until 11 p.m. tonight. So we keep telling you guys, y'all are starting to see rain now. Things fairly calm, I guess you could say, calm before the storm, but this is an all-day event, so stay hunkered down, and pretty much some of the worst action could be later on this evening.
Yeah, the tornado watch in particular, you're going to find it. We talked about it earlier. I think you said the dirty side of the storm, the right side of the storm. This is the Hurricane Center cone overlaid with that tornado watch. The yellow shaded parishes, Iberville, if it's a little blurred by the track, Ascension, Livingston, there's Tangipahoa, and then southeast from there into New Orleans. The right side of the track is typically where you have the favorable wind profile for tornadoes to briefly spin up into some of those tropical rain bands. So that's what we'll be watching very carefully. I think you see some of these western parishes in it in case we do see a little deviation on the path to the west. But largely most of that tornado activity, what does develop, will fall east of the center and maybe northeast of center just as this storm is making landfall later.
Yes, and we'll continue to watch this and update. The system still picking up speed as it moves, now moving northeast at 16 miles an hour. Still good news because that means it'll move through quicker, but that also tells us it's approaching even faster, and we'll start to see some of those issues out there. We'll be monitoring the radar very closely.
And speaking of, let's take a look at that right now. We do have an eye defined on radar here. We also notice some heavier, call it convection shower and thunderstorm activity on the northeastern side of the eye wall, and then a band spewing out from the northwestern side. But it is pretty light south and east as some of those factors we'll go through in just a minute here, such as wind shear and dry air, start to take a toll. We checked in with Balin Rogers a few moments ago in Morgan City, getting one of those heavier rain bands right now, and starting to see the rain pick up closer to the New Orleans metro and Lake Pontchartrain. It's just outside here. Not much wind, still kind of a light, misty, moderate rain at the moment.
Yeah, and really when it comes to that tornado watch, if we were to see any spin-up tornadoes, that's going to be ahead of landfall. In these rain bands, that's typically where we see those systems spin up some of the tornadoes, and they might be quick-lived, but they definitely can do some damage.
Yeah, you know what, and this is interesting to point out. So you see how these rain bands kind of spin in from the southeast to the northwest. So think about, you have a southeastern wind coming in at the surface, and we talked about wind shear working on the western side of the storm. So in the upper levels of the atmosphere, winds coming out of the west, we always talk about how in a severe weather event, you need winds moving in two different directions in the atmosphere to create that funnel effect, that shear effect. So while shear is bad for hurricanes, it is good for the formation of tornadoes. And we have ample wind shear through the course of the atmosphere from a southeasterly surface wind to a westerly upper level wind, which is overall harming the hurricane, but may help to generate some tornadoes later on today.
Yeah, definitely pros and cons with both of that. So it's a lot to work with. We can't rule out severe weather at any point during the day, even if in regards to the hurricane or with those tornadoes.
All right, as we move along to the track here and just push in a little bit tighter so you can see the capital area, this is now without that tornado watch on there. You continue to see our closest time frame to the National Hurricane Center forecast and land is 7 p.m. But notice where the center is. It should be a little bit inland by then. I know I've had a few comments from people that it's confusing that they continue to kind of waver back and forth between a landfall time. The National Hurricane Center forecast do not ever explicitly display landfall times. That's kind of up to us to communicate. And we believe that's going to be around 4 to 6 o'clock. I think that's the exact text I just put in our blog online.
Yeah, those later afternoon, early evening time frames, hours.
With the max winds at landfall likely close to 90 miles per hour, the pros and cons you mentioned, Emma Kate, is that we could see some really significant winds last a little bit further inland, but it should tamp down on the heavy rain threat overall. But speaking of those winds, it's not just the tornado threat that's greater on the eastern side, it's just the general wind threat.
Right, yeah. The winds typically will move from the southwest to the northeast with this system. And so as they move counterclockwise, the stronger winds are going to be on the east side. And as we can see with the latest track, that does put Baton Rouge just to the west of the center. Can't rule out some strong winds there, but especially for our easternmost parishes, that's where we could see the gustiest winds. Closest to the eye and to the center, that's where we could see the hurricane force winds, but even tropical storm winds obviously will do some damage.
Yeah, and worth pointing out too that that's that eastern side. We talk about winds a lot, but that's also the side where you not only have the forward motion of the storm coming from southwest to northeast, but the winds in the same direction that piles extra water up on those south-facing shorelines. So along the immediate Gulf Coast, east of St. Mary Parish, coming up the Atchafalaya River toward Balin Rogers there in Morgan City, and then more upon Pontchartrain. Going to have to watch out on those North Shore locations as well for some water stacking up there. And remember, once the storm passes, the opposite becomes true. The winds come around from the northwest, and we're going to send all of that water back to the south shores. Now, it likely won't be as high, but you might get a minor surge on the north-facing shorelines on the backside of this system. And that does even mean some of the tidal inland locations along the immediate Louisiana coast. Think Fouchon, Grand Isle, on the backside of those barrier islands rather than the coastal facing side.
Yeah, something you wouldn't typically think about, but definitely is an impact from these tropical systems.
That's why those storm surge warnings often last well beyond the hurricane warnings. All right, now we talk about just the overall health and strength of Hurricane Francine. And Emma Kate, even an hour ago, we were seeing a little bit more deeper, colder cloud tops with Francine than we are now.
Yeah, Francine still looks to struggle to strengthen even more, which is great news. It is predicted still to have that hurricane strength when it makes landfall, but as of even early this morning, it could have potentially become a stronger Cat 2 storm. There's just so many factors in the atmosphere that's working against it to not allow it to strengthen even further.
Yeah, and that those max winds at 90 may well be plateaued at that point. We'll keep an eye on this number. This is kind of a leading indicator as to where the storm is going, the minimum central pressure. If that is stable or even rising, you have a weakening storm. What we were seeing yesterday was a pressure that kept falling, but winds weren't responding. But but usually a falling pressure is a strengthening storm. So let's go back further and talk about the shear working on this and why we're talking so much about maybe the upper limit and strength has been reached. There are clues looking at a larger satellite picture that we can find to pick up on the wind shear that's working on that storm. You don't really necessarily see it on the storm itself, but if you look at the clouds around the area, where Emma Kate's pointing, in the southeastern Gulf, to the west, you see these high, thin clouds moving southwest to northeast. That is wind shear working on the west side of the storm. It's likely why we've never seen an eye cleanly open up on satellite.
Right.
Some of those high clouds blow over top of it, and all of that is good news. Plus, the other factor harming Francine.
Yeah, the dry air, obviously storms in the tropics don't like dry air. That kind of shuts off its energy source. And so as we take a look at what's going on over in Texas, all of that brownish color, that's deep dry air that's trying to make its way into the system. Actually, yesterday when we were watching Francine, expecting it to become a hurricane a bit earlier than it did, it was factored in that the dry air was in the mid-levels, kind of making it harder for the system to develop. It eventually did yesterday afternoon, and now today we still have that dry air working in from pretty much all angles, trying to kind of die down the system.
Yeah, a real small, subtle little feature to watch here. So think about the circulation around a hurricane counterclockwise, right? So you have all of this dry air on the western side. Follow this dry air slowly but surely. While some of it's covered by upper level clouds right now, it is wrapping in to this storm's center. That little notch right there, that's some dry air starting to intrude on the center circulation of the storm. That is what slowly but surely gnaws away at these things and breaks them down. And that should happen more rapidly as it moves inland and has those weakening effects due to friction across land as well. The storm shear, the wind shear, the dry air, all of those working against it. Look, we're just telling you this is why we don't think there's further strengthening. I don't want you to think that this means we have a weak hurricane or we expect reduced impacts. All of our impact messaging remains the same. We're just kind of digging in here and show you what's happening in real time.
Absolutely, yeah. Still expecting hurricane strength storm impacts when it's making landfall, but thankfully we likely won't see it become even stronger before then.
All right, so as we tighten up once again and look at the track, we look at that live radar. We noted the speed. That's what causes the winds to last further inland, but maybe the rain threat to lessen overall. I think, Emma Kate, that track and the positions of the storm over the next 12 hours really, or 18 hours really illustrate the speed.
Yeah, I did want to point out this gap right here where it looks like there's no rainfall. That actually might be that drier air trying to circle into the system. So that's something good to see when it comes to tropical storms. But yeah, quick moving, great news that by this afternoon, when we see that first landfall through southern Louisiana, by tomorrow morning, 7 a.m., it's expected to be well above our coverage area. That's great news for when we talk about rain rates and the potential for flooding. Because the system's moving so fast, won't be as likely to see those training bands across the region. But something to note is that when fast-moving systems do pass through, it allows for the high winds to move further inland than they typically could.
Yeah, and on that right side, on that eastern side, closer to the bodies of water is important too. You have less friction there. You don't have trees. You don't have buildings, so winds will whip across more upon Pontchartrain, especially on those shorelines. You may experience some locally higher gusts than you do in the inland areas where all of those other factors kind of work against those winds. It is a bit of a tale of two stories from the capital city to the coast right now. Winds at Metro Airport 15 miles per hour, 77. Still see a few cars on the interstate. Can tell that we do have rain and a dreary day, but nothing terrible outside in the capital city yet. Morgan City starting to change a little bit.
Yeah, those winds definitely picking up down there. We just talked to Balin Rogers earlier. He was noticing the winds as well. Sustained winds in the 20s, but those gusts becoming tropical storm, eventually hurricane strength gusts out there. You can see even from the live radar, more moderate to even heavy downpours down near Franklin, near Morgan City, even moving up towards Baldwin across St. Mary Parish. And we'll continue to see these deteriorate the conditions as the day wears on.
And with these winds in Morgan City, I'm working on a visual right now. It's a graph that will show you the wind timeline in Morgan City. The next time we come on the air with our next weather update, or myself or Emma Kate will bring that to you. I'm almost finished putting that one together. But we want to show you that timeline. We'll also then give you a reference point in Baton Rouge as well for that timeline of winds we're looking throughout the next 24 hours. It's kind of a give and take with the impacts we expect in the capital area. I think just going back Sunday, I thought this was primarily a rain event for us. Monday looked like kind of a 50-50. Yesterday it was looking like primarily a wind event.
Right.
I think I kind of lean like 60-40 wind to rain impacts across most of our viewing area.
Yeah, I'm with you, and I think that has much to do with the speed of this system. If it was slower moving, and maybe be more so a rain concern, but at this moment, the grounds are saturated, the winds are going to be able to be gustier further inland, and of course, that could mean more trees, more power lines, things like that knocked over.
Yeah, that's the point. You made it right there. We've had news stories the last few days about the saturated grounds and the potential for maybe some of those weakened trees from last year's drought potentially coming down. It will take less to do maybe more damage.
The rain we had last week and now even more beginning early this morning. Yeah, we'll definitely be monitoring that.
Fingers crossed the canopy holds up, and stick with the storm station. We'll keep an eye on all of that for you. We'll have another update here on air in just a couple of minutes. You know that. We're with you through the duration of this thing. Now, this weather app, great tool. I personally use it, even though we have access to so many other tools in-house here. That weather app has the storm track on it. You can zoom in, place it right next to your neighborhood, and it gives you an idea and a timeline of where it will be and when. You can actually click on the little icon, and it shows you the storm stats at that point. So
very helpful.
Really helpful. WBRZ.com. We just published an update before jumping on the air with a tornado watch, new forecast information. We've got new forecast images in there on the expected winds, the expected rain, and advisories are coming out every hour now on our weather and X platforms, and we'll continue to update all of that. That information, of course, we're breaking on the air as well, but we just want to make sure you have kind of covered everywhere.
Yeah, so hunker down, prepare. We'll see things really ramp up over the next few hours as the system makes its way closer to the coast.
All right, we'll be back with you in a few minutes. JP, Brandy, over to you.
Thanks so much to our storm station team. And we are only hours from Francine making that landfall here in Louisiana. Stay weather aware. Stick with us here on the storm station. Download the WBRZ news and weather apps to stay ahead of the storm. You can stream our live team wall-to-wall coverage and get up-to-the-minute updates, even if your cable or electricity goes out. That is crucial. We are also streaming live right now on YouTube, getting you the important information to help you weather the storm before, during, and after.
You know, Brandy, as Dr. Josh and Emma Kay just showed us, a lot of Livingston parishes on the right side of the storm's path are the dirty side. So residents there are making some last-minute preparations.
Yeah, News 2's David Hamilton is live with the parish president. David, good afternoon. So how is it looking in Livingston, and what are you learning about their preparations for the storm?
Good morning, Brandy and JPC. Yeah, like y'all said, I am right here in Livingston Parish. Matter of fact, I'm right outside of the Emergency Operations Center of Preparedness for Livingston Parish. And like they've told me today, they are doing everything they can to make sure residents and their residents are the top priority to make sure their safety is taken care of. Now, right on side of me, I have Parish President Randy DeLette, who's here to tell us about some of the things they have done since the last 24 hours.
Yeah, to expound on the message earlier, we want the citizens of our parish to realize that we have trained for this event. We have people in place, we have equipment at a stage, and our mission is to make sure that the safety and welfare of the citizens of Livingston Parish is taken care of. Having said that, all elected officials are being involved in this decision, or most of them have been. The sheriff has requested, along with the Homeland Security, that we have a dusk to dawn curfew. I'm sorry, couldn't think of the word curfew. I apologize. And the reasons for that is we're going to have a direct hit to Livingston Parish. The storm is coming dead center of Livingston Parish. We're going to have 90-mile-an-hour winds. There's going to be a bunch of dead trees that are going to be on the ground. In addition to that, the tidal flood is going to be probably between 3 and 7 foot. So that's on the low-lying areas. That's going to bring a lot of flood water in. The Sheriff's Department has to maintain the safety and welfare of those people, and it's going to make it a lot easier if we have a curfew. Now, a curfew doesn't stop anybody from going for emergency services or going to their workplace or anything that's a necessity. What the curfew does is stop the joyriders from riding through the water, riding over electric lines, and no one likes a curfew. But we will have a curfew the first day between dusk and dawn, and this curfew is only for the safety and welfare of our people. In our fire departments, those people need the curfew also because they're responding. People are still sandbagging as we speak right now, and we have outages all throughout the parishes. I think we have 6 to 8 outages as we speak. All this is going to get worse as we go along tonight. So the curfew is a good call by Homeland Security and the Sheriff's Office.
Yes, sir. And we're also here with Chris Anderson, who is the director of the EOC office. Can you just tell us a little bit about what more have y'all been doing today, as well as to making sure, like you said, there's 68 outages currently. What are y'all doing in preparation?
Yeah, sure. So we have our sandbag operation still moving until the wind speeds hits that 35-mile-an-hour unsafe zone. We will be ceasing operations here shortly. You are seeing those outer bands coming in. So as soon as those outer bands start getting closer to us and the wind speeds pick up, we'll have to start stopping those services from going out. But as of right now, we're still pushing sand to the locations that are low-lying floods. And right after that, first light tomorrow morning, we'll start our push to make sure all the parish residents are getting their roads open and cleared and power back on as fast as we can.
Yes, sir. And now, look, we're still here in Livingston Parish, and we will be here for everything, for any and everything that happens, and we're here to keep you updated. And just like the parish president and Mr. Anderson said, there is a curfew now in state, and what do y'all say is from dusk to dawn, and from what days?
It's going to be only one day, first night today, dusk to dawn.
Yes, sir. And that's all we have right now. We'll be back with more and more updates as more progresses. Reporting in Livingston Parish, David Hamilton, WBRZ News 2.
Great, thank you for that reporting, David. And preparing for the storm, Rouse's Markets has announced that they are around the state. They'll be closing early today at 4 locations in Baton Rouge, Zachary, Denham Springs, Gonzales, and Prairieville. Will all close for the storm. They are open right now for those last-minute items you may need. Then at 6, their locations in Mandeville, Covington, and Slidell will also close.
Well, the East Baton Rouge Parish Mayor's Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Preparedness is finishing up their final preparations. St. Vincent de Paul and the Salvation Army already have set up shelters in the parish. And News 2 spoke with Mayor Broom this morning on how to stay prepared during this hurricane.
We are prepared on our end as far as city parish government is concerned. So I want our residents to stay off of the road. I want them to be guarded when it comes to generators, because generators can be unsafe if you're not using them appropriately. I want them to check on their neighbors. We are prepared to respond to the impact of Francine, but I just want our citizens to be safe in the midst of this.
Mayor Broom is also urging people to stay safe during this hurricane season. And as she said, check on your neighbors, families, and the elderly. As Francine approaches the shoreline, Terrebonne Parish already starting to feel the effects of the storm.
That's right. Matt Rivers is in Houma, where the rain and wind are starting to pick up.
Just the fact that we had to wipe our camera lens, because if we're not doing that, you can't even see it. That's how much rain is now coming down here in Houma. And that's really changed over the last, I'd say 20, 30 minutes, where this has really begun to pick up. And that's how you know that the outer bands of this storm that has just been inching towards the shoreline for seemingly forever now for the residents here is really starting to be felt. You can see the rain behind me. It's picking up. There's a little bit of street flooding. The wind definitely increasing. Not that big of a deal as of yet. There is a curfew in place here, so that's a Walmart parking lot that this morning was jam-packed with people trying to pick up last-minute supplies. Obviously, that's not the case anymore. People really hunkering down. And I can show you just some of the preparations that are being made, because this is a place that has dealt with storms before. So if you look here, you can see some of these gas pumps have been wrapped up. This is obviously closed. If you were trying to get gas to run a generator, for example, before this storm, that time is over. Now the time to hunker down is here. And then some of these buildings, again, this is an area that gets a lot of storms. You got this here, which is an actual built-in system, a gate that they can lower to make sure that some of those exposed areas of this building doesn't get hit by flying debris. We know that the state is preparing. The governor just had a press conference saying that there'll be 2,500 National Guard troops activated for all of this. There's going to be 400 state troopers that are actively on duty at this point. The state is preparing for a lot of flooding, flash flooding. Again, sorry, we got to wipe the lens there because it is so rainy out here. A lot of flash flooding, because what we're going to see here is a lot of rainfall in a short amount of time. Somewhere 5 to 10 inches of rain expected in certain areas. That is a recipe for flash flooding. So I think if you're talking about the overall risk from this storm and what feels like the most risky, it's probably the water more than the wind at this point. The winds will be severe, but it's the water and the flooding that is expected from this is really got officials concerned.
All right.
Well, it just shows you for all along the coast, those areas, including Terrebonne Parish, Lafourche Parish, Jefferson Parish, and then Assumption. I could just go on. The list goes on. They're all being affected, starting to see conditions worsen as the storm makes its way to make landfall. Well, after Francine has moved through, there can be a lot of work to do.
That's right. And 2 on your sides, Brittany Weiss explains.
Before and after the storm, you want to take a full evaluation of your property, take pictures, and know your named storm deductible. If you have flood damage, homeowners' policies do not cover most flooding. You need a separate flood insurance policy to protect your home and belongings from flood damage. Take pictures and video of the flood damage before removing the water or making repairs. You need this to make an insurance claim. Contact your insurance company. Let your insurance provider know as soon as you can about your claim so an adjuster can visit your property to look over the damage. If you don't have flood insurance, you may be eligible for federal disaster assistance if your home is in a federally declared disaster area. 2 on your side, Brittany Weiss, WBRZ News 2.
All right, Brittany, thanks for that. She brings up a lot of good points. And, you know, it's good to have all the documentation. It's good to get ahead of the game before the storm hits to make the process a lot quicker and easier.
One of the big tips that I've always been taught was to take pictures of everything in your home and in your area as it is now. That way, whenever you do file those claims, you've got evidence and pictures to show exactly how everything was and all of the stuff, the contents inside.
And it's as easy to do. If you do have some damage, whether it's a downed tree or you lose some shingles or whatever, get some pictures on your phone. And then you've got it. Then you can send it right to the insurance company and make your claim. So, well, you know, the Mayor President's Office of Emergency Preparedness, or MOSEP, continues to meet ahead of landfall.
News 2's Gabby Davis is live from the East Baton Rouge Parish of Emergency Preparedness. Gabby, what's the latest? What are you learning?
JP, Brandy, we are here. We just spoke with an official from the mayor's office. He told us there is a briefing going on upstairs, but it'll end soon, and he will start sending officials down here for us to speak with. And when we do get them down here, we will be asking them questions about drainage. How is that being monitored? Community concerns. What are people calling in about? And also, we will be discussing after storm plans. And it'll all be live here on the live coverage from WBRZ. Live in Baton Rouge, Gabby Davis, WBRZ News 2.
Well, Gabby's there with the Mayor's Office of Homeland Security Emergency Preparedness. A short while ago, at about 11 o'clock or 11:30, we heard from the Governor's Office of Homeland Security Emergency Preparedness, GOSEP. What we know right now, 2,500 Louisiana National Guardsmen have been mobilized. They have aircrafts and water vehicles. Obviously, they're going to wait for the storm to pass before they can actually get out there and help people if needed. But they have been mobilized, and we've been talking a lot about the post-storm recovery, where all of our emergency officials, both local and on the state level, have been telling us that the post-storm, after the storm passes, is often the most dangerous. And they've been reminding people about generator safety, about making room for those linemen, and about just some of those other things you want to be aware of, including carbon monoxide. That's probably the biggest thing we're going to keep pushing, is about the generator safety, keeping that generator about 20 feet from your home, not near open windows, not in a closed garage. So there's still lots of information that you'll want to know. A lot of that is posted on our website, WBRZ.com. But right now, we are bracing ourselves for impact from the storm. It feels like it's been very quiet out there, but we have not, the storm hasn't really hit us the way it will later this afternoon. Dr. Josh and McKay keeps telling us that this afternoon things will look a lot different outside.
Somebody that's been monitoring the conditions for Baton Rouge is Mayor President Sharon Weston Broome, and she's standing by live with Gabby Davis at MOSEP. Gabby, take it away. What are the biggest concerns from the mayor this afternoon?
All right, here with me is Mayor President Sharon Weston Broome. They just got done with their briefing, and she's here to tell me what that briefing was about. Please share with us your concerns about what this storm is bringing to us.
Yes, we just had our 1 p.m. briefing with all of the agencies that are part of our Incident Command Center. And basically, we are still in a wait-and-see mode. There have been no developments that caused us any alarms at this moment. But what we are doing is continuing to be prepared, listening for any concerns that our constituents might have. We activated MOSEP this morning at 6 a.m., fully activated. So we are ready to respond to whatever Hurricane Francine brings our way.
Is there anything else that may have came up that may be a concern for you guys?
There are no immediate concerns. As I've been sharing all day, our city parish government has been working intentionally over the years, even since we had the great flood of 2016, to constantly improve. We've spent dollars to clean out our waterways, $70 million we've spent. We've worked on the A-meet and the co-meet, and we've gotten over 30,000 tons of debris out of our water systems. So I believe that preparation laid a great foundation for where we are today in terms of seeing that water flow that might come into our community as a result of the hurricane. And of course, our departments have all been prepared to make sure that they can clean up the roadways if trees are down and do anything else that's necessary to offer an expeditious response.
And anything else you would like the community to know as the storm approaches?
As the storm approaches, I want our community first to stay safe. Make sure you're prepared with everything you need, your flashlights, your food, your water. Make sure you're connecting with your neighbors. But most importantly, stay calm.
Alrighty, we are going to be here for some time interviewing officials about what's going on with the storm and what is the after-storm recovery plans. Please stay tuned. Live in Baton Rouge, Gabby Davis, WBRZ News 2.
All right, Gabby, thanks for that. And the Mayor Broom repeating what she told us earlier on Tune In this morning. It seems to be the motto this time around, stay calm.
Stay safe, stay calm. And that's really a very, very important message, JP. We constantly talk about the fact that, our area, we are very familiar when it comes to storms and active weather season. So staying calm, especially after all we've been through with storms like 2016 and Ida and so on and so forth, it is very important that you stay calm. And make sure you stay here with WBRZ and the storm station, because we are tracking Francine, sending push notifications directly to your phone through the WBRZ news and weather apps to keep you up to date, up to the minute with notifications and alerts.
Yeah, and I can tell you, Mayor Broom, throughout her tenure as mayor, she's tackled a lot of issues, but it seems the one constant year in and year out, storms, tornadoes, floods. It seems like her administration has handled a lot of that, and she's been on this show a lot, talking about everything from floods to freezes and now hurricanes. So she has a lot of experience when it comes to that.
That's right. And we are going to give you team coverage across the board. We've got our teams all over our viewing area to give you a live look of what's happening outside. And I want to reiterate, it may be quiet or seem quiet where you are right now, but as the afternoon progresses, the conditions will deteriorate. We are checking in with our storm station meteorologist, Dr. Josh Eachus, our chief meteorologist. He's all over it. He'll be up next with another update for you to give you the very latest of what to expect as we track Francine.
Yeah, and you will see as the storm slowly makes its way onto shore and then quickly speeds up, you're going to see bands of rain, then winds, bands of rain, winds. So it's going to be one of these things where you may not see anything for a while, then boom, all of a sudden, heavy rains and those wind gusts come in. That's typical in a tropical system like this.
Which is why we want you to stay safe and stay weather aware. A tornado watch already in effect for a lot of our viewing areas, so you'll want to make sure you stay safe. Those things can spin up very quickly, so we'll want to make sure that we are checking in with the storm station meteorologists. They're tracking it for you. As I said, they've been sending push notifications to your phone. We've got lots of information of where to get sandbags, the shelters, those shelters of last resort that are open. You want to make sure you're staying weather aware with us on WBRZ.com. We have everything you need to know. And of important note, if the power goes out, we will continue to stream live on the WBRZ YouTube page. You can also stream us through those apps or through the WBRZ.com website.
And that's a great point, Brandy, because take right now while you have power, because you may lose it in the next few hours, get those phones charged. Get your batteries out, your flashlights ready, maybe cook some extra things and get ready just in case you lose power so you can keep up with the latest information. Because look, from Livingston to Ascension, East, West Baton Rouge, East West Feliciana, Point Capee, Iberville, Ascension, we have got you covered. We have, as you've seen, just within the last hour, we've been all over the place coverage of this storm. It's unprecedented. We have so many reporters and photographers out covering those areas, and they have yet to see any really bad conditions. But you know what? In the next hour or so, that's going to change.
That's definitely going to change, and you'll want to make sure you're staying weather aware. If you're clicking around on WBRZ.com right now, we do have an article listing the curfews that have been posted, because as we're telling you, later this evening, evening, the conditions outside will continue to deteriorate. Our storm station is going to walk you through the timeline of when and who's going to be under the gun for the impacts of that. But there are curfews in place for much of our viewing areas, so you want to make sure you are aware of that. Again, we're not seeing a whole lot here other than rain and some breezes, but we know that that's going to change. As they were showing us the storm track, I know a lot of people were looking at that to see that we're on the east side of the storm. A lot of our viewing areas on the east side of the storm, so they're going to be feeling those impacts.
Yeah, right now it is 1:26. Coming up in just a few minutes, we're going to hear from Dr. Josh Eaches, who's going to give us a complete recap, complete forecast. He's going to take a current look at the hurricane, tell us where it is and how that track looking, any change in the track, any change in the speed. Everything you need to know about Francine is coming up. Keep it right here. We are tracking Francine on the storm station, WBRZ. Back with much more just for you right after this.
Research shows that car crash injuries are more costly and more severe than ever, but insurance companies are still trying to pay victims less. Don't miss out on the money you deserve because you didn't call us.
Call Deadly Devotion.
The results are in, and All-Star Automotive is the largest automotive group in Baton Rouge.
That's right. With 14 brands at 13 convenient locations, we are the largest automotive group in Baton Rouge.
Thanks to All-Star Price,
All-Star Service,
and All-Star Selection.
You get it all at All-Star. So come choose 14 brands at any of our 13 locations.
Or go to allstarautomotive.com. Serving Baton Rouge since 1987.
All-Star Family.
After my wreck, I tried to handle my case on my own. Every time I took one step forward, I took 2 steps back. So I got Gordon.
I'm attorney Gordon McKernan. We've seen this game 1,000 times. We know how to take on the big insurance companies, and we'll fight, get you every dollar you deserve for your medical bills, lost wages, and pain and suffering.
Gordon got it done and got me $245,000.
Just call me. Get it done.
Are you ready to take your back porch or patio to the next level? Upgrade now to a 4-season USA-made sunroom with Ironworks USA. Add square foot value to your home and relax in a beautiful, climate-controlled space. Custom designed and custom built using powder-coated steel framing with glass options such as impact-resistant or low-E. Interest-free financing is available, so call Ironworks USA now for your free estimate.
If you've been injured in a car wreck, what's the one thing that's keeping you from calling a lawyer? Is it money out of your pocket? With our no-fee guarantee, you don't pay us anything unless we get money for you.
Demand Dudley DeBosier.
Call Deadly Devotion.
The storm station is tracking Francine.
Good afternoon and welcome back to our special coverage of Tracking Francine. I'm John Pestrick.
And I'm Brandy B. Harris. The storm has been making its way to the Louisiana coast all morning. We've been tracking it, giving you team coverage. Let's go to Chief Meteorologist Dr. Josh Eaches for the very latest on Hurricane Francine. Dr. Josh, good afternoon. So is Francine still getting stronger?
I'm of the mind that we've seen the intensity peak on Francine thus far. Max winds at about 90 miles per hour. To this point, winds are out of the northeast. Or it's moving to the northeast at about 16 miles per hour. Guys in the back, you can tell my mic's low. It's on, so I want to make sure we check that. We continue to find that storm moving off to the northeast at 16 miles per hour, and there is a little bit of dry air starting to wrap into this system. We can see that in multiple ways. I'll take you through some of those here just a moment. But the first that's really interesting to me is this notch that is forming just south of the Louisiana coast. You'll notice that we do have a southwesterly wind flow overall. There's a lot of dry air on the western side of this system. That gets ingested into the counterclockwise feed into Francine, and that's starting to carve its way into the storm's center of circulation now. And we've also noticed in the last couple of hours, the last few scans on satellite, you see those bright shades of pink? That shows us very high, deep, cold cloud tops, strongest shower and thunderstorm activity in the storm, collapsing a little bit. All of that is good news. With the grain of salt, this is still a strong hurricane, 90 mile per hour max winds. The takeaway is that this is not going to be a ramp up of intensity into landfall like we've seen in some past hurricanes to affect our area. But this is still a hurricane affecting our area. So we're not letting our guard down. I'm just letting you know that we have likely reached peak intensity on Francine. And the results are because of all of that dry air that we've been showing off to the west, and these white lines on the map, that is fast-moving mid to upper level winds that tend to rip apart the hurricane as well. And they're going to play a role in ultimately steering this thing more to the northeast through our region as we get into the evening hours also. So that's the factor in the setup and the strength of Francine. As for what is happening right now, when we take a look at the radar picture, you can see with our high-resolution radar that we've got a storm over the last 4 hours or so. This is rapidly approaching the coastline. I've been texting back and forth with meteorologist Balin Rogers, and he's of the sense that winds have really started to ramp up, and they're getting close to tropical storm force in Morgan City. And actually, just a second, I'm going to show you some radar estimated winds that would kind of verify what he's sensing there. So we'll zoom in a little bit tighter now, talk first about rain in our area, and we don't have any major reports thus far of flooding. That would be expected. I think the heavy rain starts about now along the coast and continues to work northward into the capital area into the evening hours. Keep in mind, let me go back just to show you, most of the rain will occur on the north side of the system, where we see those moderate shades of yellow, even a little bit of embedded orange. This is where all the heavy rain is. Radar south of the storm center, not much, ragged, opening up, where that dry air is starting to take its toll. So you're going to experience the heavy rain first. While the heavy rain is happening, the winds are going to start to pick up. And then on the south side of the storm center, we'll likely see much lighter rain, straggling showers while the winds remain into the evening hours. But thus far, we've only picked up about a ½ inch since midnight in the Baton Rouge area, and in Morgan City approaching 2 inches. Those gauges are going to start to go higher, though, here in the coming moments. All right, now we look at that zoomed in radar view, and we can see a pretty large open center of circulation. This is the last identified point of the storm center from the National Hurricane Center where that line ends. But you can tell the center might be just a little bit farther to the east of that. So we'll see if there are any more wiggles to the east and the track adjustments moving forward from the National Hurricane Center. Again, we've seen just a kind of a slow progression from originally a landfall in southwestern Louisiana to here we are in south central Louisiana, an adjustment of about 150 miles over the last 3 days or so here. Anything more to this point should be relatively minor in terms of track shift, but especially when you're on that immediate center line, there is kind of a big difference from east to west, and the farther you go to the west, the lesser your impacts would be. So we'll continue to follow those trends into the evening, but we're focused in on those heavier bands that are starting to move across south central Louisiana now. Now I'm turning on our velocity product. This is something we use when we're talking about severe weather. We may need to use this later because of the tornado threat in our area. But overall, when you're looking at velocity, you're really just sampling the winds in the atmosphere. When you're looking for tornadoes, you're looking for that cross of winds moving toward and away from the radar at the same time, telling you have circulation. But you can look at the speeds too. And ultimately, these speeds are the wind velocities above the surface and gives us an idea of what may be within the storms there and what could potentially mix down to the ground. And radar is estimating that there are some wind speeds just above the ground of about 60 miles per hour in south central St. Mary Parish. And look offshore, close to the storm center. No surprise. Max winds in the hurricane are about 90, and radar is estimating there may be one of about 80 in there. I will point out that this particular position where we're sampling these winds is a little bit higher in the atmosphere because it's farther away from the radars. One over in Lake Charles and Fort Johnson, the other one that's been moved recently to Hammond. So the farther it shoots into the sky, the higher those winds are going to be. So maybe overestimating some of these wind speeds at the moment, at least what's closer to ground level could be slightly lower. Again, Balin told me he's sensing that we have about 35 to 40 mile per hour winds in Morgan City. And if you say that these winds might be overestimating a little bit, all of that kind of matches right up. We probably do have those 45, maybe 50 mile per hour winds moving toward Morgan City now. All right, so as we go out a little bit wider and look at the track with the radar overlay here, you're seeing Wednesday, 7 p.m. 90. That's going to be a storm that is perhaps just inland at that point. We're projecting landfall a little later than yesterday. We were saying 2, thinking 4, 5 o'clock now seems likely on the south central Louisiana coast. And from that point forward, we should see some rapid weakening in this system. And just look at the progress 12 hours later, it's barely holding on to tropical storm status, approaching I-20 in Jackson, Mississippi. So we're going to see a fast improvement in conditions before daybreak tomorrow in the capital area, but that's after the next, say, 6 to 12 hours are pretty rocky here locally. So let's go to Futurecast to give you an idea for the timing as to how all this unfolds. Here we are, live time. We'll zoom into the coast. 3:30, looks like the center's just off offshore. I'll also point out that our Futurecast color scale, we try to kind of keep this in tune with what you're seeing on radar. This is overdoing a little bit compared to current radar. And there's a couple things to point out here. First off is a stronger storm, as Futurecast is indicating, would be pushed a little bit farther to the east. And in the last couple of days, we've been talking about how the National Hurricane Center forecast lies to the west of what a lot of the model guidance was showing. Well, if the models are checking in on too strong of a storm or estimating too strong a storm, naturally they are going to be a little bit farther east than where some of that guidance has been. So I think that's one of the reasons that's been occurring. And I also point out that this may be a little bit too intense on the rain rates, because it's not what we're seeing on radar right now. And that's why I think you've seen the Weather Prediction Center rainfall forecasts come down a little bit from yesterday. In some cases, we're a corridor of maybe 5 to 10 or 6 to 12 inches of rain. So now more in that 4 to 8 range overall, and more like 3 to 6 in the capital city. So all that a roundabout way to say our heaviest rain and wind action is occurring in South Louisiana just ahead of the landfall during the mid-afternoon hours. And then conditions will start to go downhill in the Baton Rouge area shortly after landfall. Some distance to cross there. Heavier rain bands primarily in the Baton Rouge area, Gonzales, Denham Springs, Livingston Parish, points south and east toward New Orleans. Again, most of it's going to be on the northern and eastern side. And then 7 o'clock and forward, we're going to lift this storm toward the state line. Midnight, it's crossing into Mississippi. While there's still not a lot of rain in and around Baton Rouge, this is still the storm center, and it's a low pressure center, and that's why the winds pick up. It will be windy and drier on the south side, the back end of the storm, whereas it'll be windy and wetter on the front side of the storm. And then Futurecast shows tomorrow morning some leftover clouds. There may be some showers out there, and I'd clock it as still breezy. But that magic number that JP and Brandy have been talking about of 30 miles per hour to when those power crews can get out and start to safely work on restoring whatever's been lost, that should occur around mid-morning to maybe midday tomorrow. Maybe not first thing at daybreak, but you should see those crews out and about by afternoon. Okay, so we talked about Futurecast and the rain rates being highest on the north side of the storm. This is what we're left with, a swath of probably 3 to 6 inches. You see where we get into this blue range here? That's some 6, maybe 7 inch totals. I think it's a reasonable worst case scenario for the heaviest rain. As you know, in South Louisiana, there are always a few bullseye point locations that see some higher amounts. That's where there may be some standing water or flash flooding issues. But overall, this is not going to be the most prolific rain-making hurricane we've seen, just simply due to its forward speed. But the largest corridor, the corridor of heaviest rain, should stretch from about I-55 southwestward to Highway 90 in western St. Mary Parish, and then eastern bounds on that over to about New Orleans and the lakes, and maybe into Washington and St. Tammany Parish on the north shore. You should miss the heaviest rain if you're in New Roads in St. Francisville, Woodville in southwest Mississippi, and then from Lafayette to Opelousas to Alexandria, really not much more than an inch or two would be expected in those areas. Rain always has you asking or wondering about the rivers. So what are we looking at from a flood potential? Starting off with the big board here showing the Mississippi. Remember, local runoff really doesn't have a factor on the Mississippi River. Its levels may actually be falling over the next few days. The Atchafalaya, that doesn't have a big drainage impact from our area as well, but we will see the level come up about a foot in Morgan City by tomorrow. Why? Winds are going to push water in the opposite direction. So we're going to see that level rise, maybe by about a foot or two, close to flood stage. And then finally, the Tangipahoa at Robert is likely to enter flood stage, minor flood stage, by the time the runoff takes effect into Friday morning, about 17 and a half feet. The crest there, flood stage is 15. We've actually had higher crests on the Tangipahoa at Robert already this year. Now we go to the important ones right in the heart of the metro area. The Amite at Denham Springs, the projected crest is currently below flood stage. The flood stage is 29 feet. We know the Amite can enter minor flood stage also a couple of times a year. So we actually have some wiggle room up to pick up even a little bit more rain before we would have any major concerns there. You'll see some rises at Port Vincent and French Settlement too. I want to point out those two locations, the crests are expected to be late tonight, early tomorrow. Once again, I think that's an effect of the river somewhat reversing course thanks to the winds and water coming out of the mouth near Maurepas and a little bit of backwater movement causing the levels to rise in those locations. But again, below flood stage. Tickfall at Montpelier and Holden, those are going to come up close to flood stage Friday and Saturday respectively. And there's the Comite at Jor. That's our fastest response river that we keep close tabs on. The flood stage there is at 20 feet, and the heavy rain tonight will likely cause a crest close to that sometime tomorrow. Again, we have a little bit of wiggle room here that we could withstand maybe another extra inch or two than what is forecast and see these levels come up without us entering a major river flooding situation, but we won't rule out some minor river flooding. But right now, the latest projections have most of our key gauges below flood stage. Let's go to the wind impacts. Talked about the possibility of tropical storm force winds. I believe they're likely to occur from, let's say, Hammond to Baton Rouge, Gonzales to Morgan City. Slam dunk that you're going to receive at some point a sustained wind of 40 miles per hour or greater in those locations. Certainly going to be some higher gusts. Even into New Roads, about a 90% chance that at some point you get a 1 mile sustained wind over 40 miles per hour. Rapidly diminishing returns on rain chances heading west into central Louisiana. New Orleans will even likely see tropical storm force winds, and Grand Isle is going to be close to that as well. So this is largely a south central Louisiana wind event on the right side of that storm. I promised this the last time I was on air with Emma Kate a little while ago, and that's a graph to show you how winds play out over the next 24 hours. You really want to know the time of the most gusty or consistently damaging winds in our area. Still should be on the cusp of tropical storm force around 4 o'clock. That's about that landfall time. But once we get that storm further inland and starting to move toward Baton Rouge, 7 o'clock hour, we're projecting a 28 mile per hour sustained and gusts over tropical storm force near about 47 miles per hour, and maybe maximizing shortly after nightfall between 7 and 10 o'clock. We could get some sustained winds in that 30 mile per hour range and potentially flirting with gusts, I would say, around 50, maybe even up to about 60 miles per hour. And by midnight, the rain will be winding down, but don't lull into a false sense of security there. The wind will remain. Again, we're going to be on that dry, open south side of the center or the eye, and winds will continue because we're close to that center. Still gusting near tropical storm force just past midnight and close to 30 mile per hour winds at daybreak tomorrow. But there's that 30 magic number for power restoration. As I hinted at, by mid-morning, afternoon tomorrow, I think crews are going to be able to hit the streets safely and get back in those linesmen do their the yeoman's work they do to get our power restored in this area. Now, Morgan City, it's a different ballgame in terms of wind speeds. Look at that 4 o'clock sustained wind of 33, gusting to 54, and we could see some gust potential up to hurricane force in Morgan City. This is an estimate for 67 around 7 o'clock. That's a sustained wind of 40 and a gust, the yellow number, to about 67 miles per hour. 10 o'clock, 36 mile per hour sustained winds, still 60. Center really starting to rapidly pull away from the coast from there, and you see a fast drop off in wind speeds a little sooner in St. Mary Parish. Naturally, the coastal sections, we see those gusts easing below 40 by 1, and tomorrow morning might even have a single-digit sustained wind speed on the immediate Louisiana coast. So all of the wind concerns have to do with our concerns about losing power. This is a modeled estimate of winds to what that may do in terms of a power outage potential. So we take this with a little bit of a grain of salt, but it gives you an idea of how the devastating winds will be at the coast first and then weaken a little bit as coming inland. So St. Mary Parish, Southern Assumption, Terrebonne, Northern Lafourche, unfortunately, there's a high potential of power outage there. Naturally, landfalling hurricane, we expect that. As the storm continues inland, 5 o'clock, you can see there's still a moderate power outage potential with wind gusts extending into say Acadiana, maybe southern Iberville Parish over to Ascension Parish, the I-10 corridor in St. James Parish, and advance our clock to 8 o'clock p.m. and still have that low. That's why we've been using the wording for scattered power outage potential, likely in the metro area in the 10-12 corridor. That will extend to the state line through about 11 o'clock tonight before those winds release overnight, and we should no longer have any damaging winds in our area by daybreak tomorrow. Other wind concern here, we brought you this a little while ago, is the potential for tornadoes. Always a possibility with landfalling hurricanes. Tornado watch in place for basically all of our parishes south and east of Metro Baton Rouge. The tornado threat should largely be concentrated immediately to the north and primarily to the east of the storm center. So that potential is there through about 11 o'clock. As the storm advances inland, we'll likely see a southwest to northeast trim of parishes out of this tornado watch. And of course, we will track those storms, and if any warnings are issued, we'll continue our coverage for severe weather just the way we would in a springtime severe weather event for those tornado-warned areas. Obviously, we're going to be live on the air all afternoon and evening long tracking this event anyway. Storm surge potential, moving through this gamut of hazards, highest along the coast. Obviously, you can see that we have the levee protection system around Morgan City. That's the white area, so not projecting a surge there. However, these reds indicate the potential for up to a 9-foot storm storm surge on coastal St. Mary Parish, some of the marshy areas in southern Terrebonne Parish. We may see a foot or two of water in southeastern Livingston Parish off the shores of Lake Maurepas, and a 3 to 6 foot water inundation on the north shore of Lake Pontchartrain. And again, one thing we talk about is this is all early because you have this southwesterly wind flow or southerly wind flow stacking water up on those south-facing shorelines. So you get your storm surge initially ahead of the storm in those areas, but to a lesser extent, there could be some water inundation on the northwest-facing shorelines. Of course, New Orleans protected by the levee there, but in some of these bays and backwater areas, some of those north-facing shorelines could see some surge overnight tonight and tomorrow morning while we get those northwesterly winds on the backside. And in some areas, barrier islands and whatnot on the backside, you could still see about 4 or 5 foot of water inundation. So we have a breakout now for you of all of these areas within the hurricane warnings and the tropical storm warnings. Let's go with a region by region impact across our viewing area. We'll start in the I-10-12 corridor. I pulled out the parishes I would include in this general area for these specific impacts. So if you live in one of those parishes that we have highlighted on the map, I would expect 20 to 40 mile per hour sustained winds with gusts that are potentially up to about 60. Possible we get one close to hurricane force, but I think that's becoming less likely watching the health of this storm right now. Rain of 3 to 6 inches, always a point location that can be higher, and especially east of Baton Rouge, the potential for isolated tornadoes. Let's go to our coastal areas now. St. Mary, Assumption, St. James Parish. Storm surge on the immediate coast of 5 to 10 feet. Winds of 60 to 80 miles per hour and gusts that could top 100. Rain of 4 to 8 inches and an isolated higher mountain. Tornadoes, again, should be of the scattered variety right along the immediate landfall point of that hurricane. And finally, for the northern and western communities, you'll be on the weakest side of the storm. You'll still notice it. I still think that, gusts to 45 could create some scattered power outages in southwest Mississippi, east and west Feliciana, and Point Capee Parish. The rain amounts will be lighter to the tune of 2 to 4 inches. I don't think we get much higher than that there, and tornadoes are very unlikely in those sections as a result. Okay, went through a lot of information there. Remember, you can get all of it on air as we continue our coverage this afternoon, but that's all boiled down in a blog on WBRZ.com. I hear the keyboard. Meteorologist Emma Kate Cowan is typing away and keeping that updated right now. The advisories come out on our WBRZ Weather Facebook and X platform every hour. Now we're getting new advisories. You'll find those there. And of course, you can track the storm and all of the rain and wind with us on the Storm Station weather app. You go into the settings there in the maps layer, turn on the Storm Tracks layer, and you'll have Francine's track on there. You can zoom it right into your backyard and see how close the center may pass relative to you. You can click on the storm icon to get the details of the stats on the storm at a given point in time. Really helpful tool there. So that's the latest on Francine now. We'll get much deeper into radar and current conditions as it's bearing down on the coast here in the coming hours, and of course continue following these impacts through our area into the evening. JP, Brandy.
Thanks so much for that very important information, Dr. Josh. Again, we're still hours away from Francine making landfall. So you want to stay weather aware, stick with us here on the WBRZ Storm Station. Download the WBRZ News and Weather apps to get all of the latest push notifications and alerts and advisories. You can also stream our live team coverage and get up-to-the-minute updates. And remember, the important part about having the app, even if the cable or the power goes out, you can still stream us live. We are also streaming live on the WBRZ YouTube page. You'll want to make sure you know that. That way, in case the power or the cable goes out, you still have a way to get the very, very important life-saving information.
So get those phones charged right now and get those apps because they can be really lifesavers when it comes to big storms like this.
That's right. And Francine preparations continue all across South Louisiana this afternoon.
News 2's Alexis Maroney and Bree Andrus are in Labadyville now. Alexis, Bree, good afternoon. We see that you've changed location, so how are conditions looking right now?
Hey there, Brandy and JP. Yeah, we are in Labadyville. A very nice family allowed us to hunker down the storm at their home. We're currently under a pavilion right now, but the storm is starting to pick up since we have gotten here. Winds are getting a lot tougher. The rain right now, like 5 minutes ago, it was a lot heavier. Right now, it's starting to lighten up a little bit, but it was a lot heavier right before we came on the air, I promise. But the storm is getting more intense by the minute. I'm glad we got here in a safe place when we did. We talked to some officials. it's a serious storm. Like, we need to take this seriously, not just treat it like it's just a normal afternoon shower. It is a serious storm, so we are safe. We're in a safe place, and the storm behind us, I wish we could show you how intense it was about 5 minutes ago, because it's just started to lighten up, but we expect it to get a lot more intense as the day goes on.
That's absolutely right, Bree. We were watching as sugarcane was, it's going, you can kind of see it in the background there, but it has gotten really intense. Waves of rain. That's what we keep hearing Josh in our ear tell us. There are waves of rain coming through, and it seems like every 5 minutes, there's just a huge, it really just pushes you with rain. We're underneath a carport, but there's some rain getting on us. And it's really intense to watch. But of course, the worst of it is not here yet. So stay safe. Just because you see rain outside doesn't mean it's over yet, Bree.
Yes, absolutely. The hurricane, if I'm correct, hasn't even truly made landfall in our area yet. I had to kind of explain that to some loved ones, that the hurricane's not even here yet. This is just the prequel to what's to come later on. This is gonna be a while before we get any relief later tonight. But if you see behind me, talking about that sugar cane here, the more mature sugar cane that's about ready to be harvested this fall is kind of all over the place. That's a result of the wind and the storm. But the sugar cane in between I don't know what you call them, the aisles of each line of sugar cane has flooded with water. So things are starting to pick up. I'm expecting it to get worse as the storm gets closer and actually makes landfall here. We are further south in Labadyville and Assumption Parish than we were earlier in Napoleonville, and things are going to be more intense on this side. But this parish is not new to this kind of storm. Before Hurricane Ida really impacted them a couple years ago, so this is nothing new. So people are really prepared. The very nice lady that opened her home to us said that she's been through enough hurricanes. She's going to prepare as soon as hurricane season starts on June 1st, and she's been ready for this storm for weeks now. So it's good to always be prepared, Lexi.
Bree, I was going to say the same thing, but we keep saying the word prepared over and over. It's Wednesday, right, and I think I've done two preparedness stories for the past 2 days. And I think it's important to note that here in Labadyville, just 7 months ago, a tornado touched down here just a couple blocks away from where we are now and wiped out one of their volunteer fire departments. It wasn't a huge tornado. It didn't hit a very large area when I covered it then, but those folks are still recovering. So there are people blocks away from where we are now who are they still have holes in their roofs. There are still, things in their backyard that are being picked up from 7 months ago, which really isn't that long ago. So if there's people, I'm sure, across our viewing area who are dealing with similar things from past storms. So, just keeping them in mind during this time. Absolutely. Is going to be really important because some people have not recovered from those previous storms. So we don't know what level it's going to be at. We don't know what we standing here in Labadyville is going to be like just yet, but you can only imagine that it's going to get worse before it gets better, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Like I said earlier, it'll be a little while before we get some relief, but we're hoping that this storm doesn't have the physical impacts that previous storms have had in this area before. We hope it kind of just like flies over really fast and gets its way out of here, so it's not a lot of damage. But of course, it is a hurricane. You have to expect that. You have to expect the worst, but hope for the best, and that's going to be the situation here. We are very grateful to the family that let us kind of stay here to ride out the storm with them. They've been very welcoming, but right now in Labadyville, things are starting to calm down a little bit, but we expect things to get worse before they get better. But for now, here in Labadyville, Bree Andrus, Lexus Maroney, back to you.
All right, Bree and Alexis, thanks for that. The thing that's kind of scary is when you see those sugarcane fields behind them. You're very familiar with that area. That's your old stomping grounds. But we've seen storm after storm come through that area, sugarcane country, and really just smash and knock down that sugarcane and damage the crop.
And something we haven't really talked about this hour, but we talked about extensively this morning on Tune In, the ground's already saturated. So when it's already wet like that, and you can even see behind them, there's standing water between the rows of the sugarcane. So when you see the sugarcane that should be harvested in a couple months already leaning like that, that's going to be very worrisome for those farmers down there.
That's right. Well, city officials and first responders are urging everyone to stay safe as Francine inches ever so close to landfall in South Louisiana.
And News 2's Jack Schimmel is live with Baton Rouge Fire Chief Michael Kimball. Jack, good afternoon. So what's the chief's main message to the community this afternoon?
Good afternoon, guys. I'll let the chief answer that for you. I'm with Fire Chief Michael Kimball. Today, what did you guys just kind of go through in that briefing, and what are you telling people, and what's the message that you guys have?
So the briefing we just had, the Homeland Security Director went over with everybody to let everybody go around the room of what is our description, what are we doing moving forward. And it's a lot of different moving parts inside that room because you have everybody that's part of serving back the city in that room at one time, from public safety, from emergency services to in technology departments, BREC, Red Cross, Sheriff's Office. Everybody's in there going over what their plan is, which allows us to be collectively have knowledge of what each other is doing. And at the time of the event, we're able to have some collaborative efforts to work forward to get the job done.
And what do you guys do in the fire department at this time?
Well, in this time, as a normal day, we respond to any type of emergency across the city. We're still doing that. But we're also prepared for any type of wind damage that we may receive or any type of flooding. We have the people and the equipment prepared to move forward to go and assist these citizens in a time of need during this emergency.
So what do you guys kind of have on your list? I know you're helping people with flooding, you're helping people with other things as well, down power lines and all those things. What do you kind of go through on your checklist before something like this?
Well, for our checklist is, of course, make sure our people have the proper protective equipment to go out into this type of environment. We check our equipment, which we do daily already. And again, it's just a normal day at work for us. It's just a little bit more preparing for a little bit more of a call volume due to the potential impact that we may receive.
And what's kind of the cutoff when you guys, when the storm's, going too much before you guys can, or I guess when you guys stop going out to help people, what's kind of the threshold there?
So that's going to be determined at the time of, we want to make sure we have situational awareness and take care of our people, but we also understand we have to go out and provide a service to our citizens. So we understand there's a risk in what we do every day. This is just another day at work again for us and to go out and provide a service to the citizens.
Is there anything I'm missing that you wanted to touch on and let the community know?
The biggest thing we'd like to understand to the community, call 911 for a true emergency. If it's not a life or death emergency, call 311, and that'll get you in contact here with the DPW folks, and they'll be able to get you your assistance of a down power line or down tree, in the roadway. If it's not a life or death situation, leave 911 open for the citizens that potentially will need that. And hopefully we don't need that, but we want to prepare for the worst, and we're very much prepared for this event.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And good luck to all of you guys today, and stay safe. Back to you guys in the studio.
All right, thank you for that, Jack. Well, WBRZ Sports Director Michael Cobble has been getting around in the city today.
Yeah, he joins us live outside the WBRZ studios. Michael, good afternoon. So what have you been seeing out there this afternoon?
Just general preparedness, right? Jack was just at OEP, the Office of Emergency Preparedness, for the parish. I went to the governor's statewide briefing over at GOSEP, Homeland Security and Emergency Preparedness for the entire state. And he was surrounded by his federal agents and, state agents that work with federal agents like FEMA, et cetera. And so really that was more of a broad-based press conference. We carry that live for you here around 11:30 noon right here on WBRZ. But, I'm a sports guy. I'm a highlight guy. So let's kind of get into some of the highlights, right? One of the things that they were talking about is the National Guard staging. And the head of the National Guard here in Louisiana said they have 2,500 soldiers staged and ready to respond to this in a varying number of ways. And they actually moved them strategically last night when they saw the storm kind of shift and take its current plot path.
Based on the track of the storm moving east, as of yesterday evening, we started repositioning our forces to the southeast and south central Louisiana. We currently have over 2,300 guardsmen on mission, and we'll continue to mobilize forces to reach approximately 2,500 total strength before the storm strikes. The Louisiana National Guard is supporting civil authorities and other agencies, and we'll continue these efforts with a focus on search and rescue. To assist with that potential search and rescue mission, operationally right now we have 58 boats and 101 high water vehicles in the area of operations. We've pre-staged 14 route clearance teams across 7 parishes to assist with debris removal and clearing roads for our first responders can respond to the storm.
And I think that's the key thing here, right, that everybody needs to talk about and understand. Stay off the roads if you can. When we were coming back to the TV station just on I-10, I glanced over at College Drive and saw in the Walmart parking lot that they're already staging utility trucks, repair trucks, right? And so we stopped and got some video of this. Obviously, these are the heroes, right, in the aftermath of the storm. They're ready to go out, but they can't go out until the storm passes. The Governor Landry talked about, what is needed to help them do their jobs, and a big portion of that is just you people staying at home, staying out of their way.
After the storm is over, please remain in place.
as you heard from all of these agencies, we are going to have a lot of people on the roadway that is necessary to put the vital infrastructure back in place so that you can go about your daily lives. We have checked with our utility partners. We feel like they pre-position the assets necessary to help them. Jay is going to give us some great information, hopefully tomorrow, that the winds will die down real fast so that the utility crews can get up and on those lines, because remember, they have a wind restriction. As to the wind exceeds 30 miles an hour, they can't repair the line. So we're hoping that this storm passes fast enough through the state and we can get all those utility trucks and DOTD and our first responders on the roadway.
Right, that's what we all hope. Anybody that's been without power during a storm here in Louisiana, or even on a good sunny day in Louisiana, can lose power, right? So the ability to get those crews up on those ladders, up on those lines, and repairing the lines, I think is vital. So again, do your part. And if you are at home without power, of course, generator safety is a huge topic of concern, right? A lot of the times we don't see fatalities due to weather instances. It's the things that happen around the weather instances, especially with carbon monoxide poisoning. That's something that the state fire marshal once again wanted to stress: generator safety if you are in fact using supplemental power.
All right, that's Michael Cobble reporting outside the studios of Channel 2. Some very important information there. And again, that generator safety, that's been coming up time and time again because we have seen some tragic results of that in years past.
That's right. And not just that, on our website, WBRZ.com, we've listed some of the things that Michael just kind of recapped there from the Governor's Office of Homeland Security Emergency Preparedness, from curfews to shelters to that information about generator safety. Want to just keep reinforcing that 20 feet away from your home. So post-storm, all of our emergency officials have been reminding us of that all morning and afternoon long, that post-storm is often when it's the most dangerous, and that's what Cobble just said there too.
We want to remind you that we have crews everywhere, all across South Louisiana, covering the storm as it makes landfall. It makes its way through the capital region. Unprecedented coverage, because that's our promise to you when storms like that here at the Louisiana coast. Right now, it's just after 2 o'clock, and we've been with you. There's another weather. I got to get that app.
That's right.
We've been with you since 5 this morning, but right now we're going to take a break and step aside. But we're going to turn it over to our colleagues, Michael Shingleton and Sylvia Weatherspoon, and they're going to carry you through the afternoon as we continue tracking Francine right here on the Storm Station, WBRZ. We'll be right back right after this.